Hello everyone, I am Sleepy Shoreline, and I am here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from and what time are you watching? Now get comfortable and relax. I grew up in a pretty good-sized town. High school grades always had between 800 and 1,000 students. The town was about 45 minutes to an hour from the second biggest city in our state, which is known for 3 rivers and many bridges. I have 2 older brothers, which means obviously I'm the youngest of 3 boys. Our mother was the general manager at our grandpa's golf course, and our father was in the state police, a lieutenant at the time this all happened. Cop Dat could be hard on us, but all 3 of us learned to always be respectful, no matter what, unless extreme situations called for us not be. I will say that due to a very dark history, I've never had a close relationship with my brothers or parents. Even with all that, I'll also admit that this made my dad and I slightly closer, if only for a short period of time. When I was 15, I went to the downtown area, getting food and ice cream with my friends at a place about a half mile from the high school football stadium. Seeing as we were only 15, going into our 10th grade year of high school, we all rode our bikes to meet up. When we came back outside, I realized that my bike was missing. After my friends and I checked the immediate area, I called my dad, knowing that he was home from work. He drove down to where I was. We all figured that he'd be pissed at us, which actually he wasn't. All of my friends got on their bikes and headed off in different directions, all of them looking for my bike. As my dad and I were driving back to the part of town we lived in, we saw 2 males and 1 female walking down a side street. The group was pushing my bike as they walked, causing me to snap to attention and say aloud, "They have my bike." My dad stopped immediately and put the car into park. We jumped out, and I laughed inside due to seeing my dad go from regular guy to cop dad. Well, we had the goal and one guy stand up against the wall with their faces touching it, and he slammed the guy with the bike to the ground. I grabbed the bike and put it in the bed of our truck. Since there were only 2 of us against 3 of them, my dad told me, "Get in the truck so they don't see your face." I said, "Screw that." It wasn't until years later that I came to regret that. The cops came and arrested all 3 of them. Fast forward 2.5 years. I was 18 and home from my freshman year of military college across the state. I was out jogging around 6 p.m. one night on the sidewalk next to the road when a car flew past me and sat at a stop sign until I passed. Luckily, I was close to my home and memorized the car's details as much as I could. The vehicle started moving again, this time a lot slower, and I walked into my house just as they were passing by. I figured that they'd just seen me jogging and slowed down as a result. Nothing unusual. Fast forward 1 week. I just finished up another jog. I walked into the house through the front door, which leads right into the kitchen. A kitchen that had a big window overlooking the driveway, front yard, street, and stop sign. As soon as I walked to the sink by the window to splash some cold water on my face, I heard a loud bang from outside. Sounded like an MET exploding. Then 1 second of silence, followed by 3 loud booms in quick succession, which, thanks to being a hunter, I knew was gunfire. I dropped down, crawled to the door, grabbed the baseball bat my brothers and I sometimes used, and ran outside. I knew a bat had 0% chance of winning against a par, but I was hoping I'd surprise them. When I got outside, they were driving away, and I recognized the vehicle from a week earlier. It was the same one that had sat at the stop sign when I was jogging. Thankfully, no one was at home at the time, or who knows where they would have been standing when this happened. On screen are photos of my childhood home, showing where some of the bullets hit. After the police came and I'd given my statement, we waited. Like I said, the town was big, but it was also small enough that a lot of people knew each other. The town's police and my brothers all joked with me, asking me things like, "Did you try and be a hero when no one else was around?" or would ask if I was crazy due to running outside towards gunfire while only holding a bat. Well, 2 or 3 days passed before we received the call from the cops, saying that they'd caught the guy who shot at my house. As it turns out, it was the same guy who stole my bike 2.5 years earlier. After finding that out, my dad and I looked at each other without saying anything. He'd seen me finish up my jog and walk into the house by pure chance. A guy received 10 years for attempted murder with a weapon, but didn't even serve the whole sentence. So we went on with our lives. I became an EM teacher in college, working on weekends, then finished school. When I was 26 years old, I stopped by my parents' house one day when I was in the area. I walked into the kitchen, and on the kitchen table was the town's newspaper. The front page read something along the lines of, "Local woman missing. Vehicle found abandoned and burned." I started reading the article and almost immediately ripped the table off its frame with rage. The article said that the missing woman's boyfriend was the same guy who had stolen my bike and shot at my parents' house. He wasn't arrested or charged with any crime related to the missing woman. I left and went back to my apartment about an hour away. Even through all my rage, I was still paranoid that the guy was following me somehow. My parents left their house for a week to stay at my grandpa's house. Life went on from there. The guy who shot up my house is currently in prison on other charges not related to the slaying of his girlfriend. When I was a kid, I went to a friend's house for a sleepover. It was an extremely hot day in the middle of the summer break, 2001. My friends and I were around 12 or so at the time, and we'd all been eagerly awaiting this night. There were 4 of us staying over in total, a pretty nice-sized event. We watched movies, ate inordinate amounts of junk food, played N64 games, the works. At around 11 p.m., my friend's parents told us it was time for lights out. But of course, we all secretly stayed up longer, keeping our voices low and the sound on the TV muted. We were playing the original Super Smash Brothers, and the 4 of us were having a tournament. We agreed that whoever won the tournament could sleep in my friend's bed, while the rest of us had to sleep in sleeping bags on the floor. Catch was, whoever came in last had to sleep in the creepy spare bedroom on the first floor, all by themselves. For us, the stakes were high. That spare bedroom was on the other side of the house, down this horrible, pitch-black hallway. It had this eerie vibe to it, a sort of ghostly vibe, the stereotypical haunted room that terrifies a young mind. There was even a family rumor that one of the previous tenants had died in the room, sharing stuff. Not wanting to lose the tournament, I picked the character I was best with, Captain Falcon. We drew lots to see who'd face off against who, and it all culminated in a free-for-all match that was worth extra points. Luckily for me, I was able to falcon kick and punch my way to victory. Our friend Jamie came in last. Unfortunately for him, he now had to make the walk down the dark hallway alone and sleep in the supposedly haunted bedroom. He begged us not to make him go, but being young boys, we all told him that a deal's a deal, and that if he didn't go, he'd never live it down. He reluctantly scooped up his sleeping bag, quietly snuck out of my friend's bedroom, and nervously creeped through the hallway until he got to the spare bedroom door. He slowly twisted the handle, entered, and closed the door behind him. That's the last any of us ever saw of Jamie. The next morning, when we went to check on him, we found the room completely empty, the window wide open. We told the adults that Jamie was gone, and they in turn called the police. According to them, the most likely scenario was that because it was a hot night, Jamie opened the window before going to sleep. At some point after that, someone came in through the open window and took him. Nobody else heard a thing, and none of the other neighbors saw anything either. To this day, we don't know what happened to Jamie, and I'm still waiting for updates. Looking back, I of course wish we hadn't made him go. I wish we'd made a different forfeit. We were young, it was an innocent death, and there's no way any of us could have foreseen what was going to happen. But still, I can't help but feel in some way responsible. I think about Jamie often, even to this day. He was a good kid, a good friend, and didn't deserve whatever happened to him. I was traveling around Australia during my gap year at the time. It had always been a dream of mine to rent a camper van and drive the length and breadth of Gold Coast Road, and then head on down to Melbourne and back up to Adelaide. I was by myself, trying to fulfill that dream, and in spite of traveling solo, I never felt lonely. That's because I met a lot of fun people along the way. Each day was an adventure, and each night was a new party with new faces. Single-serving friends, as they said in Fight Club. Ours for one evening, and then you never see them again. But of all the people I met on that trip, two stick out like a sore thumb in my mind. It was during one of my final nights in the country. I was close to Adelaide at this point, and had just met a couple of guys called Dave and Jacko. They seemed like fun people, friendly and up for a good time. I spent the evening with them, drinking a few brews under the stars. As the evening drew to a close, I wished them both well and said that if we didn't meet again, I hoped they'd both have nice lives. Since I was living out of my camper van to save money, I was sleeping in there too. So I hopped inside my vehicle, a little dizzy from the night's beverages, and fell asleep in the back almost immediately. I woke up in the middle of the night to rumbling and the sound of tires on dirt. My van's engine was roaring. Whilst I was sleeping in the back, someone had got their hands on my keys and were now driving my vehicle to God knows where, with me still in the back. I started shouting, "Hey, stop!" But all I heard in reply was laughter and hollering. It was a sound I'd heard earlier when I'd made Jacko laugh. Now I knew who was driving. Question was, where was Jacko taking me? Looking out the window, I could see that there was another car following ours. Behind the wheel was the other guy, Dave. What were these guys up to? I didn't want to find out, so I took out my phone to call for help. No signal. That's because we were long gone from civilization by that point. We were in the outback. Because of the partition between the front and rear of the van, I couldn't see or get to Jacko. I couldn't jump out of the back of the van either, given the speed at which we were moving, the fact that Dave was right behind us, and the fact that we were in the middle of nowhere. So I tried reasoning with Jacko, shouting for him to pull over. He ignored me. I don't know how long I was in the back row before I woke up, how long this madman had been driving me, but eventually we came to a stop. Looking out the window, all I could see was desolation. Nothing for miles in any direction. The real Australian outback. Jacko jumped out of the vehicle and hopped into Dave's car. The pair of them circled my van, kicking up dust all around. I could hear them laughing and taunting me, saying things like, "Here, mate, have a nice life," as they drove off back the way that they had come and disappeared from my view. It's infamously perilous to travel into the outback. Without shade or supplies, most people don't last a day. The sun was rising, and it was set to be a scorching day. I was dehydrated from the night before, and there was only one small bottle of water in the back of the van. The van itself was almost out of gas. I had no phone signal. If I couldn't get a hold of anyone, I was dead. I had two choices: sit in my vehicle and make use of the weak air conditioning while I could, or hop out and walk in a random direction in hopes of finding help. Look, who knew how far away that might be? In the end, I chose the former. I was stuck out there for 20 hours before a helicopter overhead just so happened to spot my van, stranded in the middle of the outback. I was unconscious when the rescuers found me. I was later told how lucky I was. Drinking my water quickly instead of sipping it, not exerting myself, and making use of the AC are what likely saved me. Wow, that and pure luck. After leaving the hospital, I was on the next flight home, but made sure to give a full and detailed description of the two blokes that did this to me. Even so, to my knowledge, Jacko and Dave were never found. I often wonder if they ever did this to anyone else. Doesn't seem like the kind of thing you just do once. The way they were laughing and taunting me, It was clear they had a taste for it. Whenever I read about people losing their lives in the outback, I think back to that encounter and wonder if Dave and Jacko had something to do with it. A few years ago, I was driving cross-country to attend a family reunion. I'd planned out my route, scheduling a night stop at an old college friend's along the way. The weather was terrible, and the traffic slowed down before stopping completely. I later found out that this was due to an accident of the head. I eventually started moving again. I was 5 hours behind schedule, and nowhere near my friend's house. I was exhausted and in need of a bathroom and a shower. So when I drove down a back road and saw a small motel, I pulled into the parking lot. Okay, so this place looked like a dump, but at least it was somewhere to recharge before I hit the road again. I walked over to the check-in window and watched as a guy appeared. He looked at me up and down and then glared at me. He asked me if I was traveling alone. Feeling uncomfortable, I ignored his question and handed him my bank card and ID. Cash only, $30. At this point, red flags were going off in my mind. What motel doesn't take bank cards in 2018? But not wanting to agitate the situation, I searched my pockets and managed to scrounge together just enough cash. Then he tossed me a clunky old key. I walked over to the room. The room was dirty, barely bigger than the bed. I quickly used the bathroom, the state of which was being left to the imagination. And then I flipped the mattress to see rusty red patches all over it, signs of bed bugs. A moment later, I saw a cockroach. That was it. I was out of there. I decided that I would use the parking space at least, and slept in the back trunk of my SUV. I curled up using a suitcase as a pillow, and some of my clothes as a blanket. It wasn't ideal, but I was so zonked out, I actually managed to fall asleep for about an hour. I awoke to talking sounds coming from directly outside. I glanced out of the window to see the guy from the check-in standing outside talking on his phone. It was about 3 a.m. He finished up his call and then walked quietly over to my room. I watched on in disbelief as he unlocked it and then walked straight in. The lights didn't turn on, and a minute or two later, he came back out, slamming the door behind him, cursing with another guy. I hadn't seen the second guy enter, so I still don't know where he came from. But if I had to guess, he must have been hiding somewhere in the room. They talked angrily for a moment, and then the check-in guy walked over to my SUV. I covered my head quickly with my shirt and stayed as still and silently as I could. I heard him rattle the locked door. Then I saw a shifting shadow, and I knew that he was trying to peer into the back. My heart was in my mouth. But luckily, between my tinted windows and blending into the general mess, he didn't notice me in the back. The two guys walked away to the far side of the parking lot, talking more, with one gesturing across the street where a diner was. While they were distracted, I quietly climbed into the front seat and started up the car. I didn't hesitate to drive out of there. They turned around in surprise as I pulled away. The last thing I remember seeing in my rearview mirror was the check-in guy looking directly at me. He gave a single nod of his head as he continued to watch me leave, as if to say, "You were lucky to escape." I called my friend and rambled about what just happened. Even though it was past 3 a.m. at this point, I'd clearly woken him up. I didn't tell my family because I didn't want them to worry. The next day, using Google Maps, my friend helped me figure out the name and location of the motel. Then, we called the cops. They seemed surprised by my call and said they'd send someone out to look. A little bit later, they informed us that the motel was deserted. They had been for quite some time. This clearly freaked me out. Whomever these guys were, they were definitely not the owners. I tried my best to put it out of my mind and enjoy my family reunion, but I couldn't stop thinking about it. Even now, I often think back to that night and find my mind plagued of what could have happened to me if I spent the night in that room or slept in the front seat of my car. The year was 2017. I was house hunting to begin a new chapter in my life. My mom found this ad on Craigslist for a house that came with very basic facilities. The homeowner was a man, and he mentioned that he had a vacant room upstairs for rent. The ad also mentioned that there were other rooms upstairs that were occupied by females, and that he doesn't rent to males because of their partying and bad behavior. Sounds good. And on top of that, it was the cheapest I could find in the area. So I decided to take a look. I reached the house around 2 in the afternoon. A decent house in a decent neighborhood. I rang the doorbell and patiently waited. Footsteps could be heard, and a man opened the door. He was probably in his late 40s. A smile appeared on his face, and he said hello to welcome us in. The inside of the house wasn't that bad. The floors were clean, and the big chandelier hanging from the top enlightened the house pretty well. A big wooden stairway on my left showed the way upstairs. "So, how many girls live here?" I asked, making a stroll around the living room. The man rubbed his palms together like he was trying to think and said, just 2 for now. They're out, on the job." I nodded my head and said, "Can I see the room?" "Yes, of course. Follow me." We headed towards the staircase to go up. As I thought, since he said on the ad that my room was upstairs with the other roommates. But he opened another door, and we followed. He took us down this long, narrow hallway, which opened to the small room which, oddly enough, had no closet, no windows, and a broken door. He proceeded to say that this was my room, and I would be sharing the bathroom in the hallway with him, and his bedroom did not have a door on it. I was definitely thinking, absolutely not. At this point, I was sure that something was very off with this guy. He was being really sketchy and was now asking me to live in a room with a broken door while sharing a bathroom next to his doorless bedroom, after which he then led me upstairs to show me the other rooms. The century-old stairs creaked in pain as we set foot on them. There were 2 rooms side by side, and the room had their doors wide open. The fact that he said the rooms were rented made me suspicious because even if the door locks were broken, I don't think any girl would leave their room door open like that. Unless he secretly enters their room in their absence. Once I entered the room, I was very surprised. There was furniture, but not a single item in there looked like it belonged to a woman. There were no mirrors or clothes or anything. Only men's clothes in one of the closets. And he had no problem with me creeping around this tenant's room without their permission. He then said he has some stuff in their closets, but they don't mind. That, to me, didn't make any sense. Why would someone pay for you to use their space for storage? Something in my heart started telling me that I needed to get out of this place right now. As soon as I turned around, I saw the man blocking the doorway, and with a creepy smile, he said, "I can show you the basement. We have a pool table down there." I cringed in fear. A cold shiver ran down my spine, but I spoke back in a calm voice. "Maybe some other time. I don't want to keep my mom waiting. She's outside." Hearing that I didn't come alone, his face turned pale. He quickly moved out of my way and said, "Okay, let me know when you want to move in." I hurried down the stairs saying, "Sure," and ran out of the house as if my life depended on it, because it freaking did. I told my mom everything. She praised me for my presence of mind and told me to report the Craigslist ad right away so that no other innocent girl like myself would step into the same trap. But as I checked the site to report the ad, the advertisement was nowhere to be found. It was swept clean from the face of the internet. We reported the guy, but the cops didn't do anything and said there was no probable cause for an arrest. Till today, it scares me whenever I recall how the man asked to show me the basement. God knows what he had planned for me. A few weeks ago, I had to fly out to a small town I've never been to in order to look for a place to live. I'm moving there in the fall to start grad school. My boyfriend flew with me, and before the trip, I researched all sorts of apartments on Craigslist and set up a bunch of appointments. Our first appointment was in the afternoon in this sort of remote residential area. The landlord sounded fine over email and asked to call him an hour before the appointment to confirm that I was coming. I called, but he didn't answer. So my boyfriend and I started walking to the house and just hoped that he would show up. Maybe 10 minutes before the appointment, he called. "Are you coming?" he asked. He sounded like an older man and had this very strange, slow way of talking, but I just thought that he was older. "Yes, we're in front of the house now." He got extremely upset. "We?" "Oh yes, my boyfriend's with me." "You never told me you had a boyfriend." It had never crossed my mind to have told him this information, since my boyfriend would not be coming to live with me. He was just helping me look for apartments on my trip. I told the man, so after a very long pause, he said, "I'm sorry, it's just sometimes people don't tell me when they're in a relationship, and it surprises me. I'll see you soon." Then he hung up. I told my boyfriend about what the man said, and he was immediately weirded out. He wanted to leave, but there was slim picking in terms of real estate at this point, so I told him that we had to stay, in case this place was the place. As we were discussing it, we saw a man leave the house we were going to view. This man was young and extremely sketchy looking, greasy hair, furtive eyes. He took one look at us and ran out of the house to his car and pulled away from the curb with a screech. Okay, so now we're really weirded out. But this isn't enough for us to bail just yet. As we were looking at each other, wondering what to do, the landlord arrived. He was in his 50s, very tall, very strong looking. His eyes are completely blank and empty of warmth or emotion. He slowly walked up to us and said, "I'd shake your hands, but mine are dirty." "What from?" "Work," was the flat reply. He asked us a lot of questions about me, completely ignoring my boyfriend. The entire time he continuously stared into my eyes without blinking. What am I going to school for? What other places am I considered living? Is my boyfriend moving into the town too? I tried to give answers that were as vague as possible. Meanwhile, my boyfriend asked the landlord questions of the same kind, which he refused to answer. He then said, "Let me show you the basement." At this point, I should have noped out of there, but I didn't. I kept thinking that this was an eccentric old man from a small town. We're city folk, and that we were just being paranoid. My boyfriend, on the other hand, wanted out. But he followed us as the man led us to the back of the house, away from the street, to this sort of detached shed. He opened the door, and we saw that there were stairs leading down into utter darkness. He flipped the switch at the top of the stairs, and the light didn't come on. Normally the response for something like this is, "Oh shit, the lights are out," or something like that. But he just said, "Mm-mm," and slowly walked down to the darkness. There he stood, without moving, in the dark, and said, "Are you coming down?" There's nothing to see if the lights are out. The landlord just stood there for a long while, then slowly walked up the stairs and closed the basement door without saying anything. He took us into the house. Weird and increasingly creepy things ensued. The front door, the only exit to the house, locked automatically, And when my boyfriend tried to fiddle with it, the man got really upset and told him to leave it alone. He managed to get it open secretly though. The man kept trying to box us into small rooms and kept reaching his hands into his pockets, only to take them away when he caught us looking. On Craigslist and in person, the man claimed that there was a grad student already living in the house, but the evidence of that seemed arranged. There were a neat pile of generic textbooks on the table, but not one thing a 20-something-year-old might read. There was a bowl of fruit on the table, but no other food in the pantry or utensils. There were maybe 3 t-shirts in the closet. This supposed grad student wasn't out of town, but the landlord couldn't say what school he went to or how long he'd been renting the house. Finally, the man had shown us every single room in the house but one. This one he refused to open, claiming it was just the attic and we didn't need to see anything up there. He gave us several reasons when we inquired. It was unfinished, or there was furniture up there. It would smell bad. This last one, I believed, because standing near the door, it smelled terrible. Finally, we made our excuses and bolted out of there. The man walked us out, pretending to go to his car and leave. And when he thought he had turned the corner, slowly sauntered back into the house. My boyfriend, fixated on the idea that there was something wrong with this guy, Googled the man that night. We found out 3 things. That he was a pillar of the community, known by a lot of the townspeople. That there was no evidence of him owning or managing a real estate company as he claimed on Craigslist, and that he had listed his home address as the very house we had been touring. The house where the so-called grad student lived. My next-door neighbor is the Grinch. Yes, I'm sure of it now. He looks exactly like the Grinch. The only difference is he wears human skin. Since he moved here, weird things have started happening in our town. He says his name is Alfred, but I know he's lying. Alfred barely talks to anyone. He never comes out of the house. Everyone in town avoids him like he doesn't exist, but I know he's up to something these days. I tried telling my parents that he was the Grinch, but they said that it was my hyperactive imagination. Last night, I was sleeping in my room when I heard a stray cat meowing loud. I looked out the window and saw Alfred sitting on his porch like a 4-legged animal and hissing at the cat. I speak your language too. He then moved his long arms with sharp nails drastically in the air, and the cat ran away in fear. I was stunned to see this abnormal behavior. Alfred went inside his house and then came out with a garbage bag. I kept on watching him. A weird liquid was dripping from his bag. He went to the backyard of his house. I ran upstairs to the bathroom as the window had a perfect view of Alfred's backyard. I wanted to find out what he was up to. As I peeked from the bathroom window, I saw him again. There was a big hole already dug in his backyard. He suspiciously looked around and then buried the garbage bag in it. I was watching him silently, and he was inches away from covering the hole when suddenly a hand popped out of the garbage bag. My heart stopped. I couldn't believe my eyes. Alfred was burying a dead body in his backyard. Suddenly, he looked around and sniffed the air like a hungry tiger and looked directly at the bathroom window. I quickly crouched down. Drops of sweat appeared on my forehead. Did he see me? What if he realized I was watching him get rid of his victim? I went back to my room and stayed wide awake for almost the entire night. When I woke up, I decided to head downstairs to tell my parents what I saw last night. On my way, I overheard them talking to someone. Yes, the cops are looking for him. He went to the pub last night, but no one saw him after that. What about his daughter? Her grandmother took over. Poor kid lost her mom. Now her dad went missing. Mom, what's going on? Oh, honey, it's Patricia. Her dad went missing last night. What? I've seen Patricia's dad. A flashback came back to my mind. The disappearance of Patricia's dad triggered my mind. So maybe the body Alfred buried. Kevin. Kevin? Yeah, Mom. Aunt Sally made cookies for you. Take some for Patricia. Poor girl must be heartbroken before Christmas. Yeah, Mom. My mom packed a box of cookies and I got on my bike to drop it off at Patricia's. Just when I set out on the sidewalk, Alfred blocked my way. He had bloodshot eyes and a scary grin on his face. My, look who's finally out of the house. I thought it would be best not to reply and just ignore him. So I moved my bike to drive past him, and he blocked my way again. Come on, we are neighbors. Don't you think it's a little rude not to talk to your neighbor? I only talk to humans. Move out of my way. What makes you think I'm not human? You could fool everyone, Alfred, but not me. Alfred suddenly snatched my hand, grasping it real tight, and spoke in a groggy, spine-chilling voice. Listen, kiddo, you think you know it all, but you don't. He then pushed my bike, which made me tumble, but I managed not to fall. I saw him walk away in the opposite direction. I could feel my heart racing. I'm certain now that the body Alfred buried in his backyard was Patricia's dad. I rode my bike to my destination. Patricia's house was decorated with Christmas lights and colorful chains. Her grandmother took me to the living room. She went to call Patricia as I eagerly watched the Christmas tree. It was decorated with so many things. And on top of that, the Christmas tree hung a Grinch face. Do you like my tree? I looked behind to see Patricia standing with a mysterious smile. She wore a beautiful red dress. There was no sadness or worry on her face. I felt a little weird seeing her so calm like that. Yeah, it's beautiful. My mom sent these cookies for you. Oh, thank you. I love cookies. Any news about your dad? Don't know. I don't even care if he ever comes back. You don't care? Patricia, I think Alfred did something to your dad. I swear I saw him last night. You should go home. It'll start snowing soon. Merry Christmas, Kevin. After saying that, she walked upstairs, and I stood there in shock. I never expected Patricia to react that way. My God, what if Alfred hypnotized her? Doesn't the Grinch possess superpowers or... I don't know, but someone needs to stop that evil man. On my way home, I couldn't help but think about the entire situation. Should I call the cops? Should I tell my dad about the dead body? They might not believe me. What if I made a secret call and informed the police? Yes, I could do that. They'll put the Grinch behind bars. On my way home, I used my phone to make an anonymous 911 call to inform them to check Alfred's backyard. I told them that there was a human body there. I went home and waited for the cops to arrive. My dad was decorating the Christmas tree, and my mom was making a special dinner when the loud cop sirens resonated around the neighborhood. They rushed to the door, opened it, to see what was happening outside. I came out with a smile on my face. I was so happy to know that the Grinch would finally be taken away. He'll get the appropriate punishment for ruining Patricia's Christmas. Open the door and step out of the house, Alfred. The cops knocked on his door. Everyone in the neighborhood watched them in a tense silence. After a few seconds, the door creaked open and Alfred came out. I couldn't believe my eyes at the way he was dressed. He was wearing a Santa Claus jacket and hat set, green nylon leggings, and a pair of red elf shoes. He was the Grinch. The Alfred made it look so natural. Sir, we had a call and we need to search your backyard immediately. Alfred quickly shifted his creepy gaze at me. His eyes were glowing. He licked his lips and smiled ear to ear. Sure, go ahead. I'm all toasty inside. Within the next few minutes, the cops found Patricia's father, Ralph Simon's dismembered dead body, buried inside Alfred's backyard. More cops were called, and handcuffs were put on Alfred's creepy hands. Everyone stared in shock. People couldn't believe that he managed to kill that man and bring his body to his house without being seen by anyone. My chest doubled in pride. I helped catch a killer. I set the town rent-free on Christmas. There might have been no family Christmas dinner where the central topic wasn't about the shocking turn of events. I slept peacefully that night, but my peace didn't last long. The next morning I woke up. I heard my mom calling my name. Kevin? Kevin? Patricia's here to see you. I got up and ran downstairs, thinking that she came to thank me. I thought she guessed I was the anonymous caller. Patricia, I know Alfred put you under a spell. That day I was trying to tell you everything, but you... Shut up, Kevin. You should be ashamed of yourself. What? What are you saying? I helped the cops catch your father's killer. You know nothing, Kevin. He was never the monster. It was my father who was the real monster. He came home drunk every night and beaten. I was crying on the porch that night before Christmas when Alfred saw me. He asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and I said I wanted freedom. He saved me from my abusive dad. He gave that man exactly what he deserved, and you sent me in jail. I hate you, Kevin. You should have known better. Enjoy your Christmas. Patricia slammed the door and left. I stood frozen. I didn't know how to feel. Regardless of the terrible things someone had done, does it justify killing them? Despite the messed up nature of the story, I couldn't help feel that it was me who stole Christmas rather than the Grinch. I was sleeping in my room, dreaming of Santa Claus. He was riding a sleigh pulled by reindeer, hovering amidst the clouds and then over the moon. The sky was filled with stars, and the night of Christmas was all set to shower joy over the children. It was one of the most beautiful dreams I ever had. When suddenly, my room door creaked open, and the annoying, reverting cry of the door woke me up. Rubbing my sleepy eyes, I saw a tall, fat man standing in my room. I could barely see his face, but I did notice his eyes. His glowing yellow eyes were staring at me. He was dressed as Santa Claus, but his arrival didn't give me any joy. I was scared instead. Who are you? You know who I am. I'm Santa. You're Santa? Where's your bag full of gifts? Downstairs. Want to come check them out? His glowing eyes had a hypnotic invite to them that I just couldn't ignore. I got down from the bed and slowly started to follow him down the stairs. The entire house was in darkness, but the living room downstairs had a little bit of light coming from the fireplace. Probably my drunk dad forgot to put it out before going to bed. He stopped near the fireplace, facing his back at me, staring at the cookies and mocha left for him on the table. Are those for me? Yes. Mom said to leave them for you. How sad. Why? You don't like it? Exactly. That's why I'm sad. I like it so much. His wide fingers with bumpy knuckles stretched out to the plate of cookies, grabbed it in one swift motion, and started jamming his mouth with the cookies. The more he ate, the more his mouth went bigger. His white beard fell off from his cheekbone because of his vigorous eating style. Once his mouth was heavily filled with cookies, he went for the glass of milk. Like a deranged, hungry man, he chugged the entire glass, spilling milk all over his red coat. For the first time, I noticed his pocket on the red coat. A huge, sharp knife was lurking in it. The steel of the knife had blood on it. Finishing his meal, he let out a burp. Oh, that was a good eat. Ah, especially after the heavy work. What kind of work? Huh? Oh, Santa's job is tough, kid. So, what's your name? Kyle? So, Kyle, how old are you? 8. We walked to the decorated Christmas tree standing in the corner. I noticed a large yellow gift box with a red ribbon lying under it. It was so big that I thought it must have been a robot car, or at least like a big toy. I brought a gift for you. I kept staring at the box with surprised eyes. He let out a huge grin and said, "Go, open it. Take a look." I reached for the box, opening the lid slowly, and as I did, my heart began to race. Suddenly, I started to think that something bad must be inside it. Then, I opened the box. A pair of hands were resting inside the box. There was no blood on them, just pale, cold hands severed from the wrists, cut clean. The hands belonged to 2 different people. Both of the hands had my parents' wedding rings. What is that? People who didn't pay their debts, Kyle. I started screaming and ran in the direction of my room, but he grabbed my shirt and pushed me to the other side. I fell onto the wooden floor, yet still managed to stand up and run inside the closest room. After getting inside, I locked the door, hearing his chasing feet stop right outside. He probably ran after me, but I got in here first, fortunately. "Open the door. I'm not gonna hurt you. You're no good to me, Dad." "Mom? Dad? Oh, they're right behind you." I turned around, and to my horror, my parents were dead, lying on the floor. Their mouths were open, their eyes were wide. Not a single drop of blood on them or anywhere in the room. I stood up, crying. I was only 8 years old, but my mom, luckily, taught me how to call 911. I sat down and started sobbing on the floor. I was a kid stuck in a room with my parents' dead bodies and their murderer outside my door. I started searching the room for a phone. I couldn't find any. The fake Santa kept knocking on the door, screaming, "Don't force me to take down this door. Come out, and I swear I'll spare your life." That's when I noticed the half-open window on the opposite side. It was a ground floor window. I could escape to my neighbor's house for help. I had just come up with the idea when the door swung open, breaking the locks and the lights turned on. I saw the man entering my room. He was grinding his teeth in anger. For the first time I saw his face. I will never forget the cruelty on it. "Now what? Where are you going to hide now?" I looked at the window and then at him. It was still possible. I ran for my life. "Hey, where do you think you're going?" His big hands tried to grope at me, but I got saved by inches this time. I jumped out of the window and fell onto the grass, luckily without injury. I got up and started running again. I crossed the fence without any trouble, and as I looked back to the window one last time, I saw the man staring at me. He had a dead, emotionless face. Then, he yelled, "Ho, ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas." I started crying, but I didn't stop. I jumped onto the porch of my neighbor and started buzzing their doorbell like crazy. Everyone woke up, and a woman opened the door. Luckily, I knew her. She was friends with my mother. She took me in and asked me all these questions. I can only say one sentence. "Santa killed my mom and dad." Then I fainted into her arms. To date, The murder of my parents that I witnessed in my childhood remains a mystery. My dad's lawyer told my aunt, whom I understood after growing up, that my parents loaned money from some mafia gang and got in trouble with them. I will never forget the man in my house who came dressed as Santa Claus on Christmas night. The sight of that yellow box with red ribbon still traumatizes me to this day. I can't tolerate the color of yellow or red. It's like a trigger to me. I don't know if the cops will ever be able to catch the guy, but one thing that still reeks in my mind is how the hell there was no blood. As if my parents' veins were sucked dry by some creature. I have so many questions and zero answers. From the very first day I began working at Disneyland, one thing was made clear to me. No one is allowed to die at Disneyland. Not now, not ever. It was against park rules. How was that possible? I asked the park manager, who was sitting behind his desk. We were in his office, and I just finished signing a mountain of paperwork. Contracts written in legalese that I barely understood a word of. That's just part of the magic of this place. If someone died within our walls, well, that would taint the reputation of the park. So why keep any participants involved in any unfortunate and entirely unpreventable mishaps? Under strict medical care, ensuring their livability until they can reach the nearest hospital. Right. So I see you have your CPR certification. That's good. You're gonna be a valuable team member one day. But we all have to start at the bottom of the pile. And that was how I wound up overheating in a bright pink butterfly costume on a 100-degree day in August. It was humid as well, bringing the overall temperature up even higher. I felt like I was suffocating inside the giant furry pink butterfly costume I'd been given to wear. Howdy, Powdy, can I take a picture with you? A little girl asked, coming over with her parents. You're my favorite. I want to be a butterfly when I grow up one day. I rolled my eyes underneath the enormous fake head. I could barely breathe. This was torture. Where were the Geneva Conventions? I was dying in this suit. You can have a picture with me, little girl. Come and give Purdy a hug, I exclaimed in my absolute best falsetto butterfly voice. I think I might have momentarily passed out after that, since I was face down on the pavement when I opened my eyes again. The girl's parents looked alarmed, as did the child. They immediately grabbed her hand and yanked her away from me. Are you drunk? The mother asked. The two of them stormed off and cast angry looks over their shoulder, marching towards the management office. You know it's really hot out here, right? You guys get to wear shorts. I'm wrapped up in a pink fur coat over here. I was worried for about 30 seconds, then realized I no longer cared about this job. That's it, I muttered, reaching up to pull the enormous furry head off my skull. I can't take this anymore. My sweat-slick hair was sticky and the fabric clung to it, preventing me from pulling the fake head off of the costume. I tugged and heaved on it. I was unable to get it off. I tried twisting it and wiggling it up and down, but my skull remained trapped with it, and I was becoming more panicky by the second. Now, the heat was becoming overbearing. Help! I started to scream, help! I can't get it off! Help! My cries for help only made matters worse, filling the suit with the hot, humid air from my lungs. The last thing I remembered seeing was the paramedics, running towards me as I swooned and collapsed on the pavement. When I woke up, I was in a dark, cavernous room. It was moist and cool, and I was thankful for that at least. I was still in the costume. I couldn't believe it. I stood up and looked around, trying to see where I was through a foggy lens of vision provided through the mouth of the giant butterfly costume. Suddenly, I shivered involuntarily, feeling very cold. It wasn't just cool in this room, it was freezing. Nobody dies at Disneyland. I remember my boss saying from behind his desk, we keep them under strict medical care, ensuring their livability until they can reach the nearest hospital. I had heard rumors of what he meant, what he'd so coyly avoided saying. The unverified reports from people who had worked at Disneyland told tales of dark practices being employed to keep visitors alive while within the park walls. Things I didn't believe at first. There were stories of staff doing CPR on dead bodies with no heads, performing life-extending procedures like defibrillation on mangled corpses well past the obvious point of expiration, all just to say that the time of death and place of death were somewhere else. But none of these rumors had been verified. It was just one explanation for how such an old park with so many visitors could have 0 deaths over all these years. Just didn't add up until this moment. I looked around and saw there were hundreds of people laying on tables all around me. Cold, stainless steel surfaces covered every inch of the room, and each table had a body on it, covered with a white sheet. The sound of steam and pressure could be heard coming up from above, and I looked to see there was a vent in the ceiling, letting in a cloud of purple gas. That gas worried me. It didn't look natural, and I had a feeling it was not FDA approved. As the purple cloud settled in the air all around me, I saw movement, twitching from the bodies beneath the white sheets. They began to writhe and moan as they rolled around. The air became filled with the rank odor of chemicals, and I started coughing violently as I was forced to breathe in gas. It grew worse and worse, like an infection spreading inside of me as I fell back onto the hard steel table and started seizing. I woke up on the floor, but I was sure that I was still dreaming when I opened my eyes. I had to be asleep, and this had to be a nightmare, because standing all around me were corpses, blinking their milky white eyes as they stared at me with their dead faces. A man in a vendor's outfit was missing his jaw. A woman wearing a fanny pack was bleeding from the eyes. Her skull split open on one side, revealing her brain matter. There was a horribly burnt man in a chef uniform, his hands and face red and peeling. "Make way, said a deep, booming voice. The zombies began to step aside, letting through a tall man in a gray custodian's uniform. "Give in some breathing room, guys. Try to remember how you felt when you woke up down there." He helped me to my feet. "You okay?" he asked. "I don't know. I think so." "Good," he said, and handed me a broom. "All right, everyone, let's get moving. This park isn't gonna clean itself." Someone pushed me from behind, and I found myself marching in a procession as we ambled outward to the park. It was dark outside, and the place was closed. I was beginning to understand the purpose of the zombies, and what my purpose was going to be, now that I was part of their ranks. "Hey, I think there's been a mistake," I told the custodian, who appeared to be in charge. "I'm not dead. I got heat stroke and passed out, that's all." The custodian came over to me and looked closely at my face, inspecting me through the mask. Interesting. Well, maybe you weren't dead initially, but that gas sure did the job. Nasty stuff. Keeps the dead moving. But you really don't want to be exposed if you're still living and breathing. It's certainly not FDA approved. Sorry to break it to you, kid, but you're one of us now. I dropped the broom and fell to the pavement with a clatter. Then my knees gave out, and I had to sit down. "Dead? Are you sure?" Felt so surreal, and it was all the worse since I was still stuck in the damn butterfly costume. I couldn't even have dignity in death. "I'm positive," said the custodian, "but don't worry, you're part of our team now, and that means you can work your way up as time goes on." He picked up the broom and handed it to me again. "But we all gotta start at the bottom of the pile." Ow. My brother is not the same anymore. This Halloween, our uncle took us to Disneyland. He drove us there and went to get tickets while my brother and I waited. It was our first time at Disneyland during Halloween, and I swear the place looked completely different. Disneyland was exploding with Halloween decorations, including fall colors of yellow and orange and pumpkins aplenty, especially on Main Street. We passed under Disney character pumpkins as we entered the park. A stroll down Main Street let us find hundreds of hand-carved pumpkins in the shape of Mickey, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and Pluto. Chip and Dale was there to greet the guests in their Halloween costumes. My brothers screamed in joy, and I too thanked our uncle for bringing us here. After trying as many rides as we could, we stopped for burgers. It was dark by then, and the Halloween decorations all lit up and looked even more dreamy. Look, the Haunted Mansion. My brother pointed at the huge Halloween-themed Haunted Mansion. The mansion was converted into Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas. That's when I noticed a tall and skinny man, dressed as Jack Skellington, standing beside the mansion. He was calling out kids to give them free Skellington face makeup. There was this small enclosure where only one could go in at a time with him. For some reason, I didn't like him. His eyes were weirdly big with red veins popping out. My uncle said we could go inside and he'd be waiting for us outside. My brother and I were walking to the mansion when suddenly the man approached us. I'm a master of fright and a demon of light, and I'll scare you right out of your pants. He did some weird dance while saying this. My brother laughed, but it didn't seem funny to me. So you're Jack Skellington, huh? My brother said, mocking him. We were old enough to know that he was just some random dude playing the role, but it felt odd how weirdly the man continued pretending that he was indeed Jack Skellington, straight out of the movie screen. He replied with fake joy. That's right, I am the Pumpkin King. How about a free face paint? Want to look cool like me? Now, there was no way I was going to paint my face as some bizarre-looking Disney character, so I grabbed my brother's hand saying, no thanks, we're going to go check out the Haunted Mansion. My brother has always been this whimsical kid who barely thought before acting out. So instead of going into the mansion, he let go of my hand and said, sure, I want a face paint. I turned around to look for my uncle and saw him far away talking to some blonde woman wearing tight clothes. I couldn't leave my brother and go to my uncle, and the place was so crowded and loud that yelling for him wouldn't have helped either. The man raised his hand to my brother and said, well, come with me then. My brother followed him without hesitating for a second. I reluctantly went along. We were right in front of the enclosure when the man stopped me saying, one boy at a time. Wait here, and I'll give your brother a new face. The way he said that gave me chills. I could sense something wasn't right, but I was just a kid and there was nothing I could do to stop my brother from going into that stall. I had no idea what happened inside the stall, but when my brother came out, his face was different. He looked so weird with the Jack Skellington makeup. He was staring at me like a zombie, no expression, no blinking, just a dead glassy stare. When my brother and I went back to my uncle was so surprised. Boy, you look exactly like that Disney character. Even the smile looks the same, my uncle said. That's when I noticed. He was right. Even though the man in the Disneyland costume gave me the creeps, he was a talented makeup artist. The smile on my brother's face was so well drawn that he looked morbidly happy, just like the movie character. When we got home, our parents laughed and joked about his face, but he still didn't answer. That night, he didn't even come down for dinner. He just went into his room and locked himself in. The next day, he missed school. I went into his room and I tried to wake him up, but I saw him sitting in front of the mirror, staring at his face. The makeup was still on. Hey, why don't you wash that off your face? Because now things were getting really weird. He slowly turned his head towards me and tilted his neck to the left and stared. What the hell is wrong with you? I yelled, getting all creeped out by his behavior, but he got up and went to the bathroom. Minutes went by, and he still didn't come out. I was getting worried. I called out for my parents, and they came into his room. We all started banging on the bathroom door. After 5 minutes, he opened the door, and he still hadn't washed his face. My mom got furious with his behavior, and she yelled at him, "Wash your face right now." My brother nodded his head from left to right. Wash it or I will. I'm telling you for the last time, she said in anger. My brother didn't say a single word. My mom went in, grabbed my brother by the neck, and started splashing water on his face from the sink. What happened next made my blood cold. As soon as the paint came off, we faced a horrible truth. The smile, which we all thought was drawn on my brother, wasn't a smile. His face was sewn with a needle and thread to give the impression of a Jack Skellington smile. I screamed seeing my brother like that. My mom started sobbing, and my dad immediately called the paramedics. We took him to the hospital and found out that he was drugged, which was why he had no idea what happened to him. The doctors cut off his stitches and put him under observation for 3 days. The sewn marks were still on his face, and the doctors said that they would go away with time. We went back to Disneyland Resort looking for the guy dressed as Jack Skellington, but they told us that no guy worked there during Halloween as Jack Skellington. I consider myself a solo traveler. Traveling around the world and connecting with new people and their unique cultures is my big passion. This one time I went to Maryland. I was driving by the stranded highway on a rainy night when I saw a big signboard on the side of the road that said, "Welcome to College City." I was glad that finally I would be able to find some shelter in the town. I drove into town and was passing by the houses when one house caught my attention. The house looked abandoned and had words spray painted on its walls. The rain wasn't that strong, so I stopped the car in front of the house and got out of the car to get a clear look. I turned on my flashlight and saw the words, "Stay away," "Evil," and "Don't come back," written all over the house. Lots of wooden crucifixes were also nailed to the house porch and gate. Thinking about what might possibly be wrong with the house, I looked at the upstairs window and saw a boy standing near it. The boy had a pale face with red, puffy eyes, like he hasn't slept in years. His expressionless face kept staring at me. Hey, do you need help?" The boy didn't answer back and just stood there. So I asked him again, "Hello, are you all right?" This time the boy smiled a huge grin. Turning around, I saw a creepy-looking old man standing behind me with a lantern. His confused face hinted that he had no idea why I was standing in front of this abandoned house. "Oh, you scared me. Who are you?" "I'm a traveler. I'm looking for a shelter for the night." But you can't stay at that house." "Oh, no. I wasn't planning that. Actually, I saw the boy in the window, hence..." "Boy? What boy?" "The one who just smiled at me. Maybe he needs our help." "There's no boy in that house. You must have imagined it." "But I did see him. He was standing right there." "The nearest hotel is still an hour's drive from here. I have a guest room. If you want, you can stay the night at my place." Saying this, the man turned around and started walking. Even though the man's behavior felt weird to me, I still accepted his invitation. It was hard for me to digest that the boy I saw in the abandoned house was merely my imagination. I don't know why, but I felt the old man knew much more than he was telling me. His house looked so old from the inside, like he was living in ancient times. We sat near the fireplace and he offered me some wine. He looked at me and said, "There's no food in the house right now. Due to the bad weather, I couldn't go out for the last few days." It's okay. I'm not that hungry." He shook his head and started rocking in his armchair. I took a pause and then asked, "What happened in that house?" The old man immediately looked up at me like I asked something horrible. "You sure you want to know?" I guess." He looked at the flames of the burning firewood and started his story. "Years ago, I moved here with my father. He used to be a farmer. There were many kids in this neighborhood back then, so Roland became my only friend. Roland used to live in that house with his family. They had a big family, always making noise, but they seemed happy. I loved spending time at Roland's house. His aunt always gave me candies wrapped in colorful paper. I don't remember her name, but she was special to Roland. One day, that aunt passed away. My father and I attended the funeral. Everyone in the family shed tears for their beloved aunt, but not Roland. He didn't cry. He didn't say a single word. Everyone was expecting that he would be the most broken, as he was the closest to his aunt. I still remember how still and expressionless Roland was when they showed him his aunt's body, lying inside a coffin. He changed from that day. He barely came out and always stayed in his room with his Ouija board. He had a Ouija board. Yes, he said his aunt taught him how to use it. But soon after his aunt's demise, scary things started to happen in that house. The family began to hear strange stripping noises and scratching sounds from the inside. At first, Roland's mother believed that the noises were connected to the dead aunt. One time, Roland told me, "I can hear someone walking in my room at night." The next morning, his mother would find scratch marks on his mattress. Eventually, scratch marks also began appearing on Roland's body. Roland would wake up at night and scream in agony, sometimes even laughed like crazy. I remember what he said to me the last time I visited. What did he say? He said, "I can see them. They all just gather around my bed and stare at me with their hollow mouths opened in a silent scream." We all thought Roland was different. We all knew something was getting inside him, but no one could stop or help him. My family called upon priests to perform an exorcism. Father Raymond J. Bishop was one of those priests who performed the exorcism. The priests placed a crucifix under Roland's pillow to cast out the evil from the house. But his bed started to shake violently, and Roland's eyes rolled upside down. He growled like an animal, as if the crucifix was causing him terrible pain. All the furniture started to fly around the room, and everyone left screaming in fear. Priests performed multiple exorcisms on young Roland. While the exorcisms were performed, Roland vomited, urinated, spit, spoke in Latin. He also laughed in a deep, demonic voice. One priest got too close during the exorcism. Even though Roland was tied to the bed in chains, he slipped one of his hands out of the restraints, broke a bed spring from under the mattress, and swung it with unnatural strength, slashing the priest's arm, which resulted in the exorcism being stopped. Oh my God. On the night of the final exorcism, words started appearing on Roland's body, as if someone invisible was carving them on his skin with a sharp knife. What kind of words? Hell. Evil. I could feel drops of sweat on my forehead as the old man went on telling about this abandoned house. He took a pause sipped his wine, and then said, "On the final night, 3 priests performed the last exorcism on Roland. They even witnessed his body float in the air when they cast a final spell. So, the boy was cured." That's what everyone believes. After that, the family left the old house, and none of us ever saw Roland again. What? Where did he go? The old man suddenly looked at the window. The rain had stopped long ago. He tried to listen to something very carefully and then said, "If you ask me, he's still in that house. He never left, because he was never cured." What? What do you mean? Didn't you say you saw a boy at the window who smiled at you? That was Roland. But if Rowan was your childhood friend, then he should be your age. That boy was maybe 13 or 14 years old. Exactly. My hands started shaking. I could feel my body getting numb in fear. The old man got up and pointed towards the room under the stairs and said, "You could sleep there, but stay away from that exorcism house." He went upstairs with feeble footsteps. I went to bed that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept waiting for the first ray of sun to hit the room. It's been 3 years since I visited that place, but whenever I try to think about what exactly happened to Roland, I find myself lost in explanations. I don't know whether what that old man told me that night was true or not, but I'm sure the boy didn't make it out alive. What if he was just sick, and everyone thought he was possessed by a demon? What if the exorcism went all wrong, and he died that night? That explains why no one ever heard from him or his family, at least. It also explains seeing a 14-year-old boy in that abandoned house, too, in the middle of the night. Believe it or not, I have a feeling Rowan died a mysterious death, and the reason his soul still haunts the place is that the world doesn't know his real story yet. I've been working as a nurse for almost 3 years now. I've seen patients brought into the hospital in horrible conditions. I've seen some of them survive and some who didn't make it. So, I believe that these constant strikes of hard reality made me strong enough to tolerate any grotesque situation. But one particular incident proved me wrong. It was a Monday night. I had just finished assisting our trauma surgeon in operating on an 8-year-old boy who was brought with a massive head injury. The poor kid tried climbing a tree with his friends while playing in the park, and he accidentally slipped from a high branch. The kid got 4 stitches on his head. For ease of operation, we had to shave his head, and now with the stitches, he didn't look picture perfect. But being heavily sedated, the kid hardly woke up after the surgery. Upon instructions, I put him in his cabin, updated his med chart for the morning nurse, and was about to leave for home, when I heard him mumbling something in his unconscious state. La ha la. Dip see. At first, I couldn't make out what he was saying, but then I heard him say it again. La la. Why did you push me? The second time, I realized what he was saying. He was pushed by another kid. Oh my God. I quickly sat next to his bed and took my ear close to his mouth so I could hear his rantings more clearly. But then he stopped talking. As I laid my eyes on him, I found the kid staring right into my eyes. He was awake, and he was looking at me with an expressionless face. Being creeped out by this sudden incident, I fumbled. You're awake. How do you feel? Where are my parents? They aren't here right now. Did anyone push you? He suddenly looked at the door as if he was seeing someone standing there, and a weird smile appeared on his face. I followed his eyes, but I didn't see anyone. The kid then said to the invisible being, "No, I won't tell him anything. I won't tell," and closed his eyes in drowsiness from the sedatives. An eerie feeling grabbed me. Except for the kid and me, there was no one in the hospital cabin. So I couldn't make up one logical reason for what just happened. I finished my usual night round and ended my shift around 2 in the morning. I returned home, took a shower, ate some food, but even amidst all that, the weird kid and his creepy taunts kept roaming in my mind. The fact that a kid's name could even be Lala confused me too. I planned to talk to the kid again in the afternoon. After enough rest, when I went back to the hospital, I walked straight to the kid's cabin. This time, I saw a woman sitting next to his bed. The woman smiled at me and said, "Thank you for saving my poor baby. You're the reason why he's alive today." She then looked back at the kid, who was now sitting on the bed looking at me with mysterious eyes. She caressed his cheeks and said, "Look what I brought for you." Saying this, she took out a yellow Teletubby doll from her bag and gave it to the boy. And that's when it struck me. Lala, Ditsy. Those are the names of the Teletubbies. But the boy's reaction shocked both me and his mother. He suddenly looked pale seeing the doll and said, "I don't want Lala anymore, Mom." "What? Why not? I thought she was your favorite." "She was, but the others didn't like that. That's why she pushed me so the others won't be angry at her." "Ryan, what did I say about telling lies? No one pushed you. You slipped and fell. Stop saying things like that." The kid went quiet and didn't say anything else. His mother went to talk to the doctor, and I sat beside him. "Ryan, who gave you this doll?" "I bought it from a yard sale." "Is this your favorite doll?" "Not anymore." "Why not?" The kid looked at the doll and then whispered like he didn't want the doll to hear what he was saying. "It brings the others too." "Others? Who are the others?" "The rest of the Teletubbies." Now, I know the kids have wild imaginations, but the fear in his eyes told me whatever Ryan was saying wasn't made up. I asked him again, "What happened yesterday?" The moment I asked him this question, a crow flew directly into the window behind his bed. The bird fell down, started flapping like crazy, and died. I called the cleaning guy to take the bird away, but something didn't seem right. I saw Ryan's face. He was looking at me with wide eyes. "They don't want me to tell you." "Tell me what, Ryan?" "They don't want you here." Saying this, the kid laid on the bed, facing his back at me. Everything was so fishy about Ryan and his Teletubby doll, Lala. I took a good look at the doll and realized that its eyes were pretty odd. Instead of eyes, the doll had big black buttons, which made it look spooky. But then, my rational senses kicked in my head. Maybe Ryan's mother was right. Maybe I was thinking too much about this simple matter. It is very much possible that Ryan was making all this up. After all, he is just a kid. I updated his chart and went to check on the other patients. The entire evening, I worked tirelessly, and the thoughts of Ryan and his Teletubbies swept away from my mind. It was probably 9 p.m. that night. I was changing the saline of a patient when I heard a spine-chilling scream. I quickly ran towards the direction of the scream. I reached the corridor and stopped right outside Ryan's room. Another night nurse, Susie, was standing outside his room with a horrified face. Her fingers were pointing inside the cabin. As I took a look, my stomach dropped. Ryan's unconscious body was floating above the bed. I had never seen anything like that except in horror movies. This kid was floating in the air. His face was terrifying. His mouth was wide open, and his eyes were rolled into his head, revealing the whites of his eyes. Ryan. Ryan, are you? Susie ran away screaming. God help us, God help us. I stood there watching the unbelievable happen in front of my eyes. Suddenly, the lights of the entire hospital went out, and the moonlight from the window illuminated Ryan's cabin. And within the next few seconds, 4 gigantic Teletubbies surfaced from thin air, surrounding Ryan's floating body. They all were looking at me. They all had black buttons instead of eyes. I felt like I was about to piss my pants. I wanted to run away, but my legs wouldn't move. They were nailed to the ground by some unnatural force. All the giant Teletubbies started to grin at me, and then screamed in a demonic voice. Time for Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies. Then, huge lightning struck, and Ryan's floating body fell onto the bed as if he was thrown from the air above. His pulse started to go off crazily. The doctors came rushing in. Ryan's body started to shake violently. He began frothing from his mouth. We were clueless. Even the doctors couldn't say what exactly was happening to him. And then around 3 a.m., Ryan passed away. His parents were informed. Everyone concluded that the serious injury in his head made him go into a state of shock, and his heart somehow gave up. Susie and I never told anyone about seeing the poor kid's body floating in the air. His parents were left in tears with their beloved kid's death. Ryan's death remains a mystery to me to this day. But I took that creepy Teletubby doll and burnt it in the incinerator. I know no one will believe me, but I am certain that it's haunted. And it was him and his mates who were responsible for this kid's death. Maybe they always wanted to take the kid's soul away. That's why they pushed him the first time. But even though he was saved the first time, he couldn't be saved the second. I wished his mom listened to him and didn't bring that scary-ass doll to the hospital. Maybe Ryan would have lived if she burnt it in the first place. Last Halloween, I went to stay at my uncle's place. My cousin Connor is probably the only kid in my family whom I like to hang out with. Both of us are in middle school, so we click without any trouble. Connor is a fun-loving kid and always looks for adventure and pranks to make the most of his holidays. Being old enough to trick-or-treat, we were casually wandering around the streets. Every house was decorated with spooky Halloween props. Pumpkin-head candles were glowing on the porches. We took a right turn and left the neighborhood. The town was located near the woods, so we could hear the owls hooting and the coyotes howling in the distance. After walking a hell of a lot and not finding anything good enough to do, we decided to head back home and watch a scary movie with a tub of ice cream. For a shortcut, we took a narrow, dusty road. As soon as we took that road, we saw neon lights blinking at some distance. What's that? Maybe someone's throwing a party. Right in the middle of nowhere. Let's go take a look. We increased our pace and reached the spot from where the lights were coming. To our surprise, we found an old house embellished with Halloween decorations to make it look like one of those haunted houses you see in fairs or amusement parks. There was a signboard put up at the entrance that read, "The true fortune teller, Lady Bakuji, know your future with just the dollar. Connor looked at me and asked, Hey, how much do you have? Are you planning to meet this lady Akuji? Why not? Please don't tell me you're scared of this too. Anyways, this fortune telling is crap. Then why do you want to go in? Just to have some fun, son boy. Now stop whining and follow me. He pushed the gate open and we started walking towards the house. The front yard was filled with tall grasses that hadn't been mowed in decades. The house was rusty and had saplings growing all over the windows and walls. We stopped in front of its huge wooden door and knocked. 5 seconds went by and no one answered. I don't think anyone lives here. Let's go home. It's already late. Your parents must be getting worried. Hey. Once the clock struck 6 p.m., my doorbell started ringing every 10 seconds. After all, it is Halloween. Every time I opened the door, I saw a bunch of cute little kids dressed in Halloween costumes, yelling trick or treat. I was already expecting them, hence I dropped by the supermarket the other day to buy candy. It's only been a month since I relocated to this neighborhood. It's a quiet, boring neighborhood where everyone minds their own business. So after a few hours of meeting kids and giving them candy, the street finally started to get quiet. The kids returned home with proud faces and buckets full of candy. Thinking there wouldn't be any more kids tonight, I finished my dinner and went upstairs to have a small Halloween party of my own. Along with the candy I bought, I got a bottle of wine and some cheese to pamper myself with as well. So I sit up my bed, turn on Netflix to watch a scary movie, when all of a sudden, my doorbell rang. I thought I was done with the kids. I came down the stairs, grabbed some of the candy and opened the main door. But to my surprise, there was no one. The street was empty. All the houses were quiet. The pumpkin heads on every porch were glowing, and that was it. No one was outside. I looked around thinking some kid was pulling a plank and came out to my porch, but I didn't see anyone. I went back inside and closed the door behind me and went back upstairs. I started watching the movie and a weird feeling grew inside my head. Everything was fine for the next 20 minutes. I was pouring myself another glass of wine when someone rang my doorbell violently. It was so freaking loud that I almost spilled some wine on my bed sheets. Bloody hell. I got up in furious anger and stomped down the stairs. I opened the door in one go, yelling, "Enough with these stupid..." But I couldn't finish my sentence. A man was standing outside my house, right in the middle of the street, with his back facing towards me. Excuse me? Do you need any help? The man nodded his head from side to side, gesturing no. He didn't even turn around. Not being able to see his face, I felt a little uncomfortable. But I asked again. Did you just ring my doorbell? Now the man spoke. Yes, dear. The man's voice sounded so odd, as if he was trying to talk like a woman. Being creeped out by this, I said in a firm voice, "What do you want?" "Trick or treat." What the hell? What kind of sick joke is this? Suddenly, the man started walking towards me at full speed, but he was walking backwards, which made the entire scene even freakier. I immediately closed the door and locked it. Drops of sweat started to appear on my forehead. What kind of psycho visits a woman's house the night of Halloween asking for candy? I waited, thinking that he was going to ring the doorbell again, but this time, he knocked. "Trick or treat? Give me some candy, dear." Get the hell away from my house. What is your problem? But I thought you liked Halloween. I saw you giving candy to all the kids. Okay, the guy out there was watching me all evening. What the actual frack? I was so shocked to hear that I couldn't even speak. He knocked again. Come on, open up. I only look like a grown-up. I'm a kid at heart. I still didn't talk. Soon, his knocks turned into loud bangs. He started punching and kicking the door. Open up, open up, open up. And this time, he started to scream in his real voice. I could feel my legs shaking. My heart was racing like a wild stallion. The banging continued for a few more seconds, and then, suddenly, it stopped. Everything went quiet. I heard footsteps moving away from the door. I waited for a few more seconds and then slowly walked to my porch window to check to see if the guy was still there. As I rolled up the curtain from the window, my stomach dropped. The man was standing right outside the window, and this time he wasn't facing back towards me. His face was right opposite to mine, and his face, I will never forget what I saw. The man was wearing a woman's face. Yes, a literal woman's face, which he wore like a mask. It was hard to believe that it was a Halloween mask because it looked so fucking real. The skin of the mask was soggy and had makeup on it. His blue glassy eyes were peeking underneath the eye holes. The long black eyelashes of the mask made his stare horrifying. Drops of thick red liquid were smeared his neck, which took this Halloween appearance to an extremely disturbing level. The man waved at me and said in a distorted female voice, "Now that you've seen my face, you can let me in, can't you, dear? Why are you doing this? Because you are pretty, and I want your face too." Now open the goddamn door. He started banging his head on the glass. He was screaming and grunting, hitting the glass over and over. After 2 to 3 hits, the glass started to crack. That's where I snapped out of it. "I'm calling 911 right now." I dialed 911, and as soon as the operator picked up, I started breaking down into tears. "Please help me. A man is trying to break in, please." "Ma'am, calm down. Tell me your address. The cops will be there soon." "My address is..." Just when I started saying it, I saw the man backing away from my window. Then, I heard footsteps fading away into the night. And then, he was finally gone. I continued the call and gave my operator the address. A few of my neighbors were woken up by that time, hearing my screams. When the cops came, I told them everything I could about the man. But because of the mask, I couldn't see his face, so I had no idea what he looked like. The only thing I saw were his eyes. A few neighbors also claimed that they saw a man running down the block once they came out. The cops took my complaint and they assured me that they would catch the guy. The next few days, I could barely get out of bed. I was so scared and tense the whole time. Then, after about a week, as I was getting over my trauma, I saw the man again. He was on the morning news. Today, a shocking incident has taken place on the street of 21st and Woodsboro Alley. A man named Jed Sawyer was found dead in his apartment last night. The neighbors next door complained about a reeking stench to the landlord, who eventually called the cops. Breaking into his apartment, the cops not only found the body hanging from the closet, but also the body of a 25-year-old woman. It is said that Sawyer strangled the woman, cut off her face and wore it like a mask. Sawyer was wearing the face when the cops found him. The violence and gory details of this crime are making many terrified. Further investigation will be conducted by the police department to find out exactly what happened. I couldn't hold it anymore. I ran to the kitchen sink and vomited like crazy. The fact that murderer came trick-or-treating to my house that night is enough to give me nightmares for the rest of my life. Before every Halloween, my sister used to get excited. She loved trick-or-treating and never missed one single house in our neighborhood. Every Halloween, my parents used to dress us up and we would get on to the mission. Who gets the maximum number of candy first wins. Halloweens were the most prominent childhood memory I had with my sister. Anyway, to this one Halloween, we got dressed up in our new costumes. Me as Batman and my sister as Loki. We were looking pretty dapper. Okay, here you go. Happy Halloween. Saying this, my mom handed us our buckets and came onto the porch before we set off onto our night hunting. As we came out onto the streets, everyone stared at us in awe. All the neighborhood kids envied us for our amazing get-ups. We were so proud. Our first destination was our Nana's house, which she lived right across the street. Billy knocked on her door, and after a few seconds, she opened the door. There, my little munchkins. Don't you guys look amazing? Do you like my costume, Nana? I love it, sweetie pie. I love it so much. Here, I have some candies for you too. Trick or treat. Come with me, come on. We went inside and Nana gave us so much candy. She even gave us 2 big chocolate bars. Lily and I thought of eating the little chocolates before moving on to the next house. As we began eating, our Nana sat next to us and said, "You two remember the rules, right?" "Yes, Nana." "Tell me." "Come back home early, don't go too far, and don't go to strangers' houses." Excellent. Now go have fun. After a brief fun moment with Nana, we again headed for the streets. By that time, half of the kids were calling it a night, so the number of kids was getting fewer and fewer on the street. It took probably about 30 to 45 minutes to cover our block. When we finally stopped under the street light to count our candy, we realized that it was getting pretty late. With so many houses with their lights turning off. Oh no, we gotta hurry home. Come on. I said this to my sister and we started running. We were a little scared of seeing such a quiet, dead world. Our house used to come over the second right turn. But because we were running and panicking at the same time, we forgot to turn. As soon as we saw a right turn, we took it. Not for a second did we think that we were going down a completely unknown street. When we took the wrong turn, we were now halfway into a completely different neighborhood. Stop, stop. My sister stopped me, and I looked around the houses with confused eyes and said, "We don't live here. The houses are different, Robbie." I took a quick scan too and realized that she was right. We were thinking of turning back and taking the right turn, when suddenly the house next to us lit up. The porch window opened, and a woman dressed as a Barbie doll peeked from it. "Are you sugars lost?" No, we're just heading home. Do you want some candy?" Come on. I won't bite. Just take some candies and go home." I looked at my sister as she was looking at me too. We both exchanged a dilemma about whether or not we should go to her house or not. But being kids, our innocent minds thought what harm could come from getting some candy. Okay. There you go. Come, I'll open the door." We walked to her porch and she opened the door. For the first time, we could see her entire appearance. She wore a pink short skirt with blonde hair tied into a bun. Her legs were weirdly hairy. The white top she wore had stains on it. She had big blue eyes with red veins popping out. The pink blush on her bony cheeks made her face look creepy. But what made me the most uncomfortable was her teeth. When she smiled at us, I saw sharp yellow teeth with green spots on them. She was the filthiest Barbie I'd ever seen. What are you looking at? Don't you like my costume? Yes, it's nice. I just ought to be polite with the lady, just as she was about to give us our candy. She gestured to a couch and said, "Here, take a seat. I'll bring the candy for you." She went into the kitchen. I don't like her. Maybe we should leave. Come on, we came this far. I'm not leaving empty-handed. God, you're gonna get us into trouble. Shut up. What are you kids fighting about? She came in with a big bowl in her hand. Nothing. We should go home. Our parents must be worried. Yes, you should. Didn't they warn you about strangers? Yes, they did. We should go. Come on, Lily. We got up and started walking towards the door. At least take the candy before you leave. She again called to us. We turned back, and saw that she was standing right behind us holding a bowl in one hand. We awkwardly smiled and started taking candy from it to fill our buckets. Take some more. I just love kids. You guys are so special. You know what? I have some big chocolate bars if you really want that too. Really? I love chocolate bars. Okay, but you have to do something for me. Like what? Oh, nothing much. Just let me take some photos of you. Will you take photos of me in the Loki costume? Yes, I will. You look amazing. My sister smiled and agreed to her offer. I couldn't even say no because of her. She took us back to the couch, sat down, and took a camera out from the drawer. It was a Polaroid camera, the one that provided one of those printed photos immediately. She let us a huge ear-to-ear smile and said, "Put your hands on each other's shoulders and smile for me." We did as she said. The camera flash almost blinded my eyes when she clicked the first picture. Now, look at each other and smile. Again, did as we were told. She went on instructing us how to pose and kept clicking pictures. After a point, something started to feel really odd to me. Her instructions started to get weird. She told me to push my sister so that she can get her pictures of her falling to the ground, then to grab her by her hair and lift her face while she was on the ground hooked. No, I'm not going to do that. We're leaving. Come on, I'll give you a big chocolate bar. We don't want candy anymore. Open the door. She got up with an expressionless face, eyes still dead like a fish. She walked back to the door without turning her back on us, as if she wanted to take a good look at us as we were finally leaving. Upon reaching the door, she grabbed the doorknob and slightly opened it. There, you can go. Come on, Lily. I grabbed my sister's hand and we began walking to the door. She wasn't opening the door enough for both of us to pass through, and I was terrified. Imagining that she would just lock the door and never let us leave, drops of sweat appeared on my forehead with every step I took towards her in the door. We were inches away when she let go of it. I grabbed the door and ran out to the porch holding my sister's hand. I might have grabbed her wrist too tight, which gave her bruises later, but at that moment, I just didn't care. I wanted to run far away from that woman and her house. I heard a snapping sound with a light flash as we left the house. Turning around, I saw her. She was standing on her porch waving at us, holding a Polaroid in one hand. Her wide blue eyes and freaky yellow smile gave me chills that night. We mostly ran the entire way home and didn't stop anywhere. Once we got onto our street, we heard my mom and dad yelling our names. We rushed to them and fell into their laps crying. The next morning we told them everything about the lady, her house, and how she took pictures of us. My parents called the cops and had 2 patrolling cars go check on her. What they found still scares me to this day. The psycho woman was an old man dressed in a Barbie costume. No one knows why he chose to dress like that, but the cops found several pictures of kids in his house. He seemed to lure kids into his house whenever he would spot them alone on the street, take pictures of them, then carry on with his sick pleasures. I'm glad we left before it was too late. The cops also found our pictures and gave them to my parents. My dad burnt them, and we never went anywhere alone at night until we grew up. The man was arrested and taught quite a lesson by the police. He left the house and never came back after that. I was playing with my Legos in the living room with my 5-year-old son when he yelled, "Daddy, something bit me." He raised his hand and showed me a drop of blood on the tip of his finger. Don't worry, I'll get the first aid kit," I said as I rushed to the kitchen to find a Band-Aid. He started sucking on the end of his finger as I searched for the Band-Aid. While wrapping the bandage around his finger, I asked him, "What do you think bit you?" He pointed behind him to a pile of Legos. It was one of the minifigures. I got them from the new kid. It was probably something sharp. "No, it's the Lego, Daddy." "Okay, let me check." I looked down at the pile of Lego pieces. My son's collection contains a wide range of bricks, plates, and tiles of various lengths, widths, and colors. I saw 2 new Lego figurines which didn't belong to Jeremy earlier. I inspected the carpet closely, but I didn't find anything sharp. "Hey buddy, which one do you think did it?" "The blue astronaut." I spot the toy he was playing with and picked it up. I hold it close to my eye and realize that it's different from a regular minifigure. It feels heavier. And instead of a simple black smile, it has a set of highly detailed teeth. Its ink dot eyes didn't seem to line up. And it wears a blue spacesuit with a sickle in one hand, which smokes highly unnatural for any astronaut costume. Where did you say you got this?" "The new kid from school. He said that I could have it." Just then, a strange thing happened. I was holding the Lego astronaut minifigure when it suddenly wiggled like a trapped worm inside my palm. It shocked me, and I dropped it on the carpet. With a surprised face, my son said, "Are you all right, Daddy?" "Yeah, just fine. You should probably clean up this mess." I sat down on the couch, and I felt a sharp pain at the back of my neck. It's like the world's largest mosquito stung me to the bone. I touched part of my neck where the pain was happening, and to my surprise, I found something. It was another Lego. This one was a soldier. It had been the same highly detailed teeth and uneven eyes. What the hell? My son and I gathered all the Legos and put them inside the box. I didn't want to disclose it, but I was sure something weird was happening with these Lego toys. I don't remember what time it was, but I woke up hearing heavy breathing right next to my ear. I slowly opened my eyes and turned my head to the left. A scary-looking man was standing beside my bed. I could see his blue and white astronaut suit. His eyes were huge, and he slowly lifted up his sickle. "Can I play with you, Daddy?" I woke up screaming as I realized that it was only a dream. A truly horrifying dream. "No, don't go in Daddy's room, stop." Even though I found myself alone in my room, I was shocked to hear my son's voice from the living room. Why was he up so late? Thinking of this, I got out of bed, came out, and saw my son standing in the dark hallway with a freaky face. "Jeremy, what are you doing out here?" Just checking on you." "Checking on me? Why?" "They were trying to disturb you, so I thought." "They? Who are they?" The astronaut and the soldier. They snuck into your room to scare you. I could feel my heart beating 10 times faster hearing my son. Was this all real? Did I really see the astronaut? Suddenly, a crackling sound took place, and it was coming from Jeremy's room. What was that? Oh no, they're angry now. What? What the freak is going on here? Being angry and pissed, I opened up Jeremy's room door and got inside. What I saw still scared me to this day. All the itsy-bitsy pieces of Legos were flying in the air, and 2 men were standing in Jeremy's room. One was wearing an astronaut suit, while the other was dressed as a soldier. Oh my God! I screamed in fear. Both men turned towards me. Their faces were made of Legos. I can't tell how creepy it was. Both of them started to laugh hysterically while saying, "Pray with us, pray with us." Jeremy clenched my hand and said, "What's happening, Dad?" Without wasting a single second, I grabbed my son and ran out of the room. I locked the door and could hear marching footsteps coming from inside. Then, the footsteps stopped outside my door. "Open the door. Daddy, play with us. Play with us. Open the door. We won't hurt you. We just want to play. Go away and leave us alone." Jeremy started to cry out of fear, and I did my best to keep him calm. After a few more minutes of heavy banging, everything went silent. We stayed in my room the entire night, and in the morning, when the lights hit, I slowly opened the door and saw all the Legos lying on the floor, as if they had finally gone to sleep. I woke my son up and said, "Jeremy, grab all your Legos. We're going to return them to your new friend." "Oh, okay. Where does he live?" "In the cemetery." "What?" "Yeah. He took me there during recess and gave me his toys." I drove my son to the cemetery where his new friend lived. He took me to a gravestone, which appeared to be all new and shiny, hinting that whoever was buried here passed away recently. The epitaph read, "Rest in peace, Tim. You can play with your Legos forever now." It took me some time to register everything. I slowly looked at Jeremy and said, "Jeremy, did you take his toys?" "What? No. He gave them to me." "Jeremy, do not lie to me. Tell me the truth. Did you take the Legos?" Jeremy suddenly looked behind my shoulder. It freaked me out even more. There was no one in the cemetery but us. A shiver ran down my spine and I asked, "What? Is someone else here?" My son's face changed. He turned pale and started crying. Jeremy, do not cry. What is it? Tell me the truth. I swear I won't be angry." I liked the 2 Legos, but Tim never said anything when I took them. He was just standing there watching me take him. He was watching us again now. He's standing right behind you. Okay, that's enough. I placed the 2 Legos on the poor child's grave without even turning back, grabbed Jeremy, and went to our car. Jeremy was crying for the Legos, but I promised him that I would buy him new ones. The fact that Jeremy somehow ended up in the cemetery all by himself scares the hell out of me. I went to his principal and bashed the school authorities for letting a 5-year-old sneak out and wander the streets during recess. They said they had no idea my son got past the closed gate, but after that day, Jeremy never talked about the astronaut or the soldier. In fact, he never mentioned the dead boy Tim, whose Legos he brought home. And somehow, My younger brother Jacob has always been different. Ever since he was about 10 years old, he'd been silent and withdrawn from the rest of the family, spending most of his time in the garden shed, tinkering with father's tools until he got hungry or weary enough to go to bed. That boy's going places, my father always said, and nobody doubted him. Jacob remarkably was good with his hands, and his creativity knew no bounds. He carved intricate wooden statuettes and built little red-roofed birdhouses for the sparrows. Our parents wholeheartedly encouraged his passion, hoping that their son would move on to bigger, better-paying endeavors, until he got a Lego set last Christmas. Jacob was never the same after that. In fact, I don't think he's visited the garden shed since. To say that Legos had become his sole interest would be a grave understatement. He'd lock himself in his room and spend hours on end, stacking and rearranging the colored pieces until his fingers ached. "Hey Jacob, you want to go outside and play ball?" Max asked, warily peeking over past his shoulder into the bedroom. Max was only 4. He always hung around the garden shed while Jacob worked and couldn't understand why his older brother never went outside anymore. "No, Max, I'm busy," Jacob retorted to the crack in the door. "Go play with Eddie." That's me, by the way. I'm the oldest and am generally expected to watch over my younger siblings. I saw the disappointment on Max's face and told him that I'd play with him for a while. He pestered me about Jacob throughout, demanding to know when our brother would make another birdhouse and if he could see a blue roof this time instead of red. "Sure," I repeated the same answer, despite not having the slightest clue. "Sure it can." I was hoping Jacob's obsession would blow over as quickly as it had begun, but it had been about 4 months since Christmas, and he was still going strong. He stopped coming downstairs to eat, and sometimes I could hear the rattle of Legos way into the night. "Dad and I are very concerned about you. I heard my mother talking to him the other day. Your grades are dropping, and you've gotten so thin your clothes barely fit anymore." But Jacob only mumbled something inaudibly. Mother was right. There was definitely something up with him. He looked frail and disheveled, with black circles under his eyes, and skin so pale you could almost see right through it. "What's up?" I asked him as he passed me, trudging up the stairs back to his room. "Hey, you want to go see a movie? There's this new one about killer robots out now." He flinched as soon as I addressed him. No thanks. "You know, it's all right to have a passion," I called after him. "Just don't let it get out of hand." He said nothing, and I heard the door slam. I sighed and shook my head, making my way down the stairs when I noticed a small red Lego piece sitting on the landing. I stared at it, disconcerted. How did it get here? To the best of my knowledge, my brother always kept his prized possessions safely hidden away from prying eyes. I picked the piece up and tucked it into my shirt pocket, figuring I'd return it to him at dinner. At the time, it seemed like a logical thing to do, but there was no way I could have anticipated what came next. Jacob was already waiting for me when I got home. "I'm missing a red Lego piece," he announced, bursting into my room. "Where is it?" I recoiled at his visceral stance. Somehow, he looked even worse than before. His face was contorted into an expression of angst, and a single bead of sweat tickled down his right temple. He reminded me all too much of our grandfather, who suffered a stroke upon being told that there was no more scotch. I couldn't bear it. "I don't know, Jake," I lied. "I don't keep track of your toys." His face turned a light, sickly shade of green. "I need to find it. Please help me." I wanted to help him, but not in the way he was asking. My brother was nothing like he had been a few weeks ago. He was now only a ghost of his former self, gaunt, wide-eyed, and desperate. Sit down. I gestured to the bed. Let's talk. But Jacob shook his head. I can't talk. I need to find my Lego. I will forever blame myself for what I said next, but struck by Jacob's shocking demeanor and unwillingness to see sense, I couldn't help myself. I know where your Lego is. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Where? I held my breath for a moment to amp up the suspense before muttering. Max swallowed it. The silence in the room was almost deafening. Afraid to meet his gaze, I stared out into the garden where a happy Max was talking to the neighbor's cat. My heart was thudding fast in my chest as I waited for his response. Would seem like an entire minute had ticked by before I dared look at my brother, wondering if he was in shock or if he succumbed to our grandfather's fate. But he was gone. Jake, I called, scrambling to my feet. Hey Jake, I was only kidding. His room was empty, aside from an arrangement of Lego bricks on the carpet, each sorted meticulously by color and size. I stared at them, wondering how long it had taken Jacob to do this. There seemed to be hundreds and hundreds. Jake, I tried again, retracing my steps down the hallway. Where are you? No answer, only the chirp of sparrows on the balcony. I returned to my room and shut the door, telling myself that he's probably just run off in a huff and would come back when he felt better. I couldn't bear anything happening to him, but he was my brother after all, and a blood-curdling shriek came from outside. I ran up to the window, stuck my palms to the glass. What I saw will remain etched into my memory for as long as I live. The door of the garden shed was wide open, and Jacob was standing on the latch, his body contorted like that of an old man, and a snarl on his face unlike anything I'd ever seen before. In his hands, he held a felling axe, the one that our father used to chop wood. "Come here, Maxie," he cooed, taking small, deliberate steps toward our little brother. "I won't hurt you. You know that." Max started running, but he fell over and was screaming bloody murder and clutching his sore ankle. I bolted down the stairs and flung open the back door, waving my hands in the air. Stop, Jake, stop. It was only a joke, are you nuts?" But Jacob smiled didn't falter. "But you would say that, wouldn't you, Eddie? You'd say anything to save precious little Maxie here. But I'll put every last piece of his body through the meat grinder if that's what it takes." "No, stop," I yelled, yanking the red Lego piece from my shirt pocket. "It's here. I found it this morning on the stairs. Take it." I tossed it to him. It landed on the grass by his feet, and he rushed to pick it up, scrumptiously examining it, as if to make sure I wasn't trying to deceive him. "Well then," he said after a while, pocketing the piece. "Good on Max for not taking things that don't belong to him." I heaved a sigh of relief, watching as a snotty, tear-stained Max started making his way towards the house. "However," he continued, "seems like not everyone is as civil." "What?" I began, but he put his index finger to my lips. "You have to learn too," he said, his lips curling into a gruesome grin. "The hard way." He bounded towards me and swung sideways. I raised my arms defensively, but it was too late. The blade slashed through my wrists as if it was butter. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Jacob holding my severed hand victoriously above his head as pools of blood stained the freshly cut grass. Max stood crying from the corner of the house, but the ringing in my ears made it impossible for me to hear. I had to get used to having a stump at the end of my arm after that. Jacob was taken to a juvenile detention center, and I haven't seen him since. I heard he got into trouble again recently and was resentenced for another 5 years. My parents go to see him often. They bring him all sorts of food, clothes, and books. But he only ever asks for one thing: Legos. I could tell the guy was an addict by the way he kept scratching at the sores on his arm. He stood outside my pawn shop window, blinking like the street lights hurt his eyes. You see a lot of addicts in my line of work. This one didn't look so desperate as to rob the place, and the velvet wrap package he was holding under his arm intrigued me. As a pawn shop owner, I deal with a lot of dangerous people. That's why I need layers of security, alarms, automated gates, bulletproof glass, cameras, and if all that fails, the 9mm pistol in a holster at my hip. I buzzed the guy in. He was unshaven, and his messy brown hair looked like it might start falling out in patches any day now. His skin had a yellow, droopy quality. Need alone. He mumbled. I tried to contain my curiosity as the young man unraveled the black cloth. Inside was a book. It was as thick as my arm and as wide as my chest, leather-bound and trimmed with gold. You can start filing out the paperwork when I see what you got. The ornate volume barely passed through the slot in my plexiglass screen. While the young man blinked and twitched his way through the legal documents, I inspected the book. It was sealed by some sort of combination lock, also made of gold. I didn't usually deal in books or antiques, but this was a special case. Fucking bitch. The addict murmured as he scrawled his name on the paper. She was a monster. She deserved it. Huh? I read his chicken scratch handwriting through the plexiglass. Clayton Blackmore, age 27, 1345 Robert E. Lee Circle, Lot 14B, a trailer park. I tore her heart out. It's the only way. Fetch. Clayton Blackmore spat on my ground. Well, about the book, I can give you $75 for it. No way, man. It's worth a lot more than that. Give it back. Clayton punched the glass. I can do $100. I replied calmly. Final offer. Yeah, fine. I'll take it. Clayton cut me off. I'd sell the gold trimming alone for at least 3 times that amount. Clayton was out the door the moment he had the cash in his hand. Just as I'd expected, I never saw him again. I only wish that had been the end of it. A woman in gray showed up the day after Clayton pawned the strange book. I was just about to close up for the night when I got an eerie feeling that someone was watching me. I turned around to find her standing so close to the door that her nose was practically touching it, peering inside the pawn shop at me. She hadn't rung the bell, and I hadn't seen or heard her approach. I buzzed her in. She was middle-aged, squarely built, and very plain. Her black hair was pulled back in a severe bun, and her shapeless gray dress looked like something out of another century. There was something about her hooded eyes and her silent, patient moments that reminded me of a snake preparing to strike. You have something that belongs to me. The woman's wispy, childlike voice sent shivers up my spine. My daughter was not the best judge of character. She became involved with a wayward man. He brought you an unusual book. Ma'am, I cleared my throat. If you believe an item was stolen, you need to file a police report, and I do not deal with lawmen. The woman scoffed. You will please give the item back immediately. I'm afraid I can't do that. A client has 30 days to repay their loan, and until that time, give me back my property. Ma'am, this isn't how it works. I think I need you to leave. I was starting to get angry. The woman in gray moved up and down wordlessly. Customers had threatened me before, but no one had ever looked at me with such raw hate. She backed out of the door and into the night, never once taking her eyes off me. I didn't realize how much the whole experience had unsettled me until I was turning the key in the lock of the pawn shop door. I kept looking over my shoulder, afraid that that eerie woman might suddenly be there. The street light behind me fizzled out. Why didn't you make it easy on yourself? I could feel the woman's breath in my ear in the dark. You know how this'll end. My hand went to my pistol. I pressed my back against the door, hyperventilating. But there was nothing behind me but shadows. I wasn't surprised to see the woman in gray return the next night, but I was done fooling around. When she approached the door, I didn't buzz her in. Instead, I pressed a paper against the plexiglass, "Leave" or 911. Once again, the woman backed away slowly, her dark eyes full of anger. I thought she was gone for good. I was wrong. When my wife called a few hours later, all I could hear was sobbing. "I need you to come home right now." I live in a quiet suburb as far as possible from the pawn shop. I never imagined that my work might follow me home. When I saw what had been done to my house, however, that illusion was shattered. "Give it back" had been painted across the driveway, the garage, the front door, and inside the house. The floor-to-ceiling words covered the hallways. They stared back at me from our bedroom ceiling, the refrigerator, and even the television. The police suspected the rust-colored letters had been painted with pig's blood, with nothing more than my description and some grainy security camera footage to go on. The officer admitted that there wasn't much he could do. Unable to sleep with those horrible words on the wall, my wife and I rented a hotel room. The next night, I waited eagerly for the woman in gray. I wanted to make her pay for the fear she'd made my family feel. I was so lost in my violent fantasies that I didn't hear the buzzer ring. A boy and girl, neither older than 10, wanted access. They looked familiar, but I couldn't have said why. I buzzed them through the first gate. "Are you two all right? What are you doing out so late?" I asked. The children looked at each other. There was a long pause. "Grandma wants her book." To my horror, the two scrawny kids began to slip through the bars of the second gate. Their faces were twisted into an expression of rage that I knew all too well. They ran at me like rabid animals, and I realized that if they could squeeze through the gate, they could squeeze through the slot in the plexiglass as well. The girl clawed her way through the first, screeching and snapping at me with her tiny teeth. I ran for the back room, slammed the door in their faces, and called the police. After only a few moments, the hammering of their little fists on the door fell silent. The officers told me they'd been unable to identify the woman in gray, and that there was no sign of the two strange children. After they left, I opened the safe and took out the leather-bound book. I knew what I had to do. Maybe I'd known all along. I drove back to my empty house. "Give it back" stared back at me in rusty letters from every surface, and I wasn't surprised to see a family waiting for me in the dark sidewalk. The woman in gray, two children, and a man and a woman I didn't recognize. All with the same black hair, dark eyes, and old-fashioned clothes, all watching me hungrily. I set the leather-bound volume on the sidewalk and backed away. That was the last I saw of the woman in gray and her family. I never learned who they were or what was inside of that strange book. And you know what? Maybe it's better that way. My Uncle Yoshi had a pawn shop in the market. We lived in a small village surrounded by forests and mountains. People in our village lived a simple and quiet life. There were hardly any crimes or scary incidents happening in the village. Kids would roam around the streets fearlessly. Villagers always smiled at each other whenever they met on the streets. The peaceful environment of the village never gave anyone the slightest idea that something evil could strike the community. Until this incident happened. Villagers would often visit my Uncle Yoshi's shop to sell antique family heirlooms for money. The shop had a small storeroom located at the back where Uncle Yoshi kept the most valuable pieces. So whenever I went to the market with my mom, I always begged her to take me to my uncle's shop. The shop was like a fantasy land for me. The various old items arranged on the wooden shelves would stare at me as if they were telling me some folklore. One day, my mom and I went to the market. She had lots of groceries to buy, and I didn't want to accompany her in that boring task, so I asked her, "Mom, Can I go to Uncle Yoshi's shop? Fine, but stay there until I come to get you. Don't go anywhere else, okay? Okay, Mom. Once she permitted me, I sped to the shop like a hummingbird. As I entered the shop, I found it empty. Uncle Yoshi wasn't there. Uncle Yoshi? It's me, Uncle Yoshi. But still, there was no sign of him. I began exploring the shop with the utmost freedom. I was going through shelf after shelf, touching every item, when suddenly, I heard a burst of crackling laughter behind me. Turning around, I saw a pair of creepy blue eyes watching me. The eyes were so huge that it felt unreal that they could belong to a human being. I felt my legs freeze in fear, and the eyes gave me a death stare. A whimpering cry came out of my mouth. Huh? As soon as that happened, the figure hiding behind the counter started to rise slowly. And then I saw a freaky-looking old man. The fact that he was inside the shop at this time and chose to remain quiet when I called out gave me goosebumps. With a fumbling voice, I asked, "Who are you? Where's my Uncle Yoshi?" Don't be scared, little girl. I'm a friend of Yoshi. He went to the market to get something. He's the one who put me in charge until he comes back. Then, why didn't you answer when I called out? Because it wasn't me you were calling for. Being a kid, his playful words didn't strike my mind, and I thought he was right. I did call out to my uncle. The man walked up to me and crouched down to my face. "Do you come here often?" Yes, sometimes." "I see. What's your name?" "Hanako?" "That's a pretty name. So, Hanako, would you like to be my friend?" A creepy grin appeared on his face as he asked me this. I didn't know what to say because honestly, he gave me the creeps from the moment we met. So I remained quiet and acted as if I was confused to answer him. "What happened? Don't you make friends, Hanako?" "Yes, I do, but what?" "My mom says not to make friends with strangers." "Oh, really?" His face turned sad, and his eyes got filled with tears. He covered his face with his hands and started sobbing like a kid. I never saw any grown-up crying like that, so I asked, "Why are you crying?" "No one wants to be my friend, because I'm ugly." Now I began to feel bad for him. He was sobbing uncontrollably, and my innocent mind didn't ponder for a second that it could all be a trap. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. We can be friends." "Really?" He looked at me with wide eyes and asked. I nodded my head and he stood up with a happy face and said, "So, now we are friends. Would you like to go to the storeroom in the back?" "The treasure cave?" That's what I named the storeroom. His eyes sparkled and let out a creepy chuckle. He replied, Yes, the treasure caves. I have the keys. Would you like to see what's inside it?" "But Uncle Yoshi never lets me go now." "Now you can. As your friend, I can take you there." "Okay." He stretched his bony hands towards me, and I was holding them thinking he was about to show me real treasure. We left the shop, made our way through the narrow lane right beside it, and reached it in front of a closed unit. The man slowly took out the keys and unlocked the door. It was so dark inside at first glance, I couldn't see anything. He walked in and called out to me, "Come in, Hanako. The treasures are waiting to meet you." I looked at the now narrow alley behind me. People were busy in the market, and no one noticed the little girl with the creepy-looking old man. I stepped inside the storage unit. As soon as I did, he locked the door right behind me. Why did you lock the door? So that no one sees us. If they do, they won't let you discover the treasures. Just then, a big wooden trunk kept in the corner of the storeroom started shaking. Someone was kicking the trunk from the inside. What's happening? Who is that? Another Hanako. Your uncle brought her last night. What? I want to go to my mom. Let me out. Sorry, little girl. That's not happening. Once you enter the treasure cave, there's no way out. I ran to the door, started banging on it, screaming. Mom, I'm in here, please help me. Do you want to wake one more friend, Hanako? She's just like you. Well, almost like you. Saying this, he walked up to the wooden trunk and unlocked it. What I saw gave me nightmares for life. A little girl was inside the trunk. Her pink frock was covered with stains and dust, like someone dragged her here and locked her up inside the trunk. She had no hair, only a few strands peeking from her bald head. Her face looked traumatized, and she was shaking in fear. Oh my God. Just then, I heard footsteps outside the storage unit and a loud bang at the door, like someone was about to take it down. After 2-3 strong kicks, the door finally gave up, and I saw my Uncle Yoshi walking into the storeroom. Seeing him, I ran to hug him, and I saw my mom standing behind him too. They both rescued me and that poor little girl. The cops were called. I was so shocked and paranoid that I hardly spoke when the cops interrogated me about the old man. He was arrested for kidnapping that little girl and also attempting to kidnap me. He was sent to prison and Uncle Yoshi testified against him, though the guy tried to frame Uncle Yoshi in this abduction, but was caught red-handed and no one believed him. The cops concluded that he somehow stole the storeroom keys and hid the little girl inside the trunk without Uncle Yoshi's knowledge. Uncle Yoshi also said that the old guy used to be friends with him, and he had no idea that he was a devil in disguise. The village people were terrified after this incident, but everyone praised Uncle Yoshi for his presence of mind. My mom believes if Uncle Yoshi didn't reach him in time, the old man could have done horrible things to me just like he did to the little girl. The girl was reunited with her family, and Uncle Yoshi became the hero of our village. But now when I think about this incident, the man's words ring in my ear. Another Hanako. Your uncle brought her last night. Do you think he told the truth? Is my Uncle Yoshi connected to the crime? Seems like I might never find out. This happened 15 years ago. I was a 23-year-old woman at the time and enjoyed playing online games. I found a website with cool-looking games, and I tried a few. This was just a bit before I discovered Facebook. I should warn that some of the sites were, well, rather buggy, and safety options weren't always available. To go on any that was unfamiliar carried risk of viruses and malware. One day I was bored, so I decided to find a game site. I typed in search bar, cool not boring games, or shooting games. Among the selection I saw the words, games of death. I had and have morbid mindset, so I clicked the words. For about a minute, my screen was blank. I couldn't see anything. Suddenly the screen lit up with the words, "Hi there. Want to see someone die? Click submit button to continue." The words were red and dripped like blood. I almost laughed at how silly the site looked. I just stared at the screen for a moment. When I noticed that the submit button was starting to blink. The words changed, becoming, "Oh, what's wrong there? Don't be. It's just a game. Don't be shy. Click the button now, please." Was a sigh. I clicked the button. What I saw looked like a bad cartoon. 3 characters crudely drawn. 2 were men, the other a woman. The men were drawn like cartoon bank robbers, with banded masks and striped black and white shirts. The woman was sitting in a chair and animated to look scared, like exaggerated over the top, shaking, trembling, and whimpering scared. The man to her left looked over, and I swear he was looking at me, smiling. "Yes, you want to see her die?" His voice was like the disguised voice of a witness. 2 button options appeared on the screen, yes or no. I hesitated, wondering what the hell was going on. The man spoke again, a bit annoyed. "Look, you clicked the link. I know you want to see what happens next. Just do it already. It's only a game. So click the button." Gulping, I clicked yes. The other man put on a butcher's apron and slid into view. He was at an operating table, complete with tools. The animation that followed hung me still. He began by using a hacksaw, and I could hear the woman screaming. I saw everything. All I heard was gurgling noises. I almost laughed, but began to feel uneasy. The animation was gross, to say the least. The man tossed aside her head. Then the first man laughed. "Wasn't that fun? Want to see some more?" "I know you do." Curious, I clicked again, yes. Another animation began. This one featured 2 men in scuba gear, while another man was wearing a business suit. He was at the edge of a large water tank, and his hands tied behind his back. The man on the left held up a sign for me to read. It said, "You want to see him die?" I hesitantly clicked yes. The suit man was screaming hysterically, trying to squirm back. Finally, the man, holding his ankles, gave a hard shove, throwing the victim in with a visible and audible splash. For about 30 seconds, nothing happened. Suddenly, the suit man bobbed to the surface, still screaming hysterically. I barely saw something behind him drag him back in, taking him under the surface. Another minute later, the man resurfaced once again. He stopped screaming, but his arms were gone. They looked like they had been caught in a giant blender. The shoulder's just a pair of shredded stumps. Then, it appeared to claim its prey, a gigantic alligator. It clamped onto his right side and hauled him down, never resurfacing. By now, I began to feel really sick. What the hell kind of cartoons were these? It was no longer fun. Now I just wanted to get away from the sight. The screen changed once more. Now the 2 men were no longer animated. They were real people. On the floor near them was a woman, in the tattered remains of a badly shredded business suit. The voice was still disguised as one said, "Wasn't that fun to watch?" We 2 wanted to see more. And they got to. Only they got to experience it. What to experience it? You have 1 minute to comply. Don't leave the site. You'd be taken away our fun. Now I was actually scared at this point. I realized to my horror, the animations had been done to cover up the crime in progress. These murders had been pre-recorded, and silly cartoons had been done to disguise what was actually happening. 3 options appeared at this time. One said, "Yes, I want to experience." Another said, "No, I don't want to experience." The last said, "I want to meet you." I clicked no. The response was threatening. "What's wrong with you? You don't want to have fun? Have an awesome experience. You saw us do what we did. Now choose. And it better be yes this time." Again, I clicked no and exited the site successfully. My heart was pounding for a moment. Bravely, I checked my history page. The site was no longer there, disappearing without a trace. Thankfully, I never experienced anything bad from going to that site, but never explored random sites again. I never told anyone of that experience until now. I wondered for a while, who were those two men? Were they ever caught? Who were their unfortunate victims? How many more did they kill, and how many more will there? More of the story is, only go to websites that you know, as you never know what you'll find if you dig deep enough. My story begins not too long ago. I decided to use my computer skills to run a small darknet forum, mainly just to share information without censorship. At first, I was extremely paranoid about my site being hacked and having privacy being compromised, so I went online and began to research everything that I would need to ensure my own safety. After countless days of searching blogs, forums, and other material, I decided I was ready now. I didn't have any money, so I couldn't just buy a VPS in-host site. So I decided to use my old laptop. After all, I wasn't planning on running a major website. So after setting the server up, in what I thought was literally every single thing I could do to harden it against an attack, I put the site online. Everything went great for a couple of months. Donations rolled in as the user base grew larger and larger. After around 5 months, the user base had gotten so big, I had to upgrade and migrate everything to a new PC, which I built just to host a forum. And from there, everything seemed perfect. The site was running smoothly, and there were no issues with the migration until one day, when I came home, I noticed the PC had frozen. I didn't think much about it. Maybe just the software bug caused it, so I rebooted it, and that's when it was clear to me that something was wrong with the PC. The PC lit up, and it beeped a few times, didn't shut off. So I thought to myself, okay, it's a hardware issue. After a few hours trying to diagnose the issue, I figured it out. And it turned out that the RAM had been corrupted. I took it back to the store since it was still under warranty. The customer service rep just told me it might have just been a faulty stick. So when I got home, I replaced the stick of RAM and had the site back up running within a few hours. Everything seemed to be perfect again. I apologized to the users for the downtime, and everyone seemed to be happy. Fast forward a few months. The forum's been up and running for around a year, maybe a year and a half. Now this is when everything started to get really weird. I finished work on a Friday. It was a gorgeous day in the middle of the summer. I came home and got something to eat, and I sat down in front of my PC and noticed I had a message. Upon opening the message, I realized somewhere I messed up. I don't really know why anybody would actually target me. The message had my details from my name, address, bank details, passwords, private emails, private messages, and everything nearly from every single device I owned. I freaked out and immediately took the PC offline, turned my internet off. But little did I know, this guy had done his research. After a couple of hours pacing my room, I received a text message. I know everything about you. The message was sent via some type of SMS service, so there was no way to trace it. And then my phone rang. Don't talk, just listen. I know everything there is to know about you, and all I want is 2 Bitcoin. But things that get worse, I'll send you a text with the wallet details. The phone call ended just as quickly as it started. I opened my laptop up, checked my Bitcoin wallet, and there was enough left over from the donations just to pay this guy off, and hoped that would be the end of it. So I entered the guy's details and set the payment. Then my phone rang again. Thank you for complying. Unfortunately, someone I know really likes you. He hung up. Panicking, I tried calling a number back. An automated message began to play. The number you have dialed has not been recognized. A few hours passed, and I began to think to myself, well, maybe the last call was just having fun, and decided after a long day I'd just go to bed. Sometime around 2 a.m., I was woken up by the sound of banging at my front door. I jumped out of bed and I turned on all of my lights, grabbing a knife from the kitchen. I walked slowly toward the window and looked out. I could see someone standing by a car. When they spotted me, they got in and they drove off. I rushed to the door in hopes I might be able to get the license plate, but by the time I opened, they'd already turned the corner. As I turned, I noticed an envelope on the floor. I picked it up, went back inside and locked the door. I closed the curtains and sat in the kitchen. I placed the envelope on the counter, stared at it for around half an hour, trying to muster up the courage to open it. Did these guys really come to my home? I thought to myself. After that 30 minutes was up, I decided enough was enough. I opened up the envelope, and pictures fell out onto the counter. They were of me sleeping. These guys had not only been outside my house, they'd been inside while I was sleeping. The images had been edited. Strange love hearts had been added next to me. So now I was sufficiently freaked out. I didn't go back to sleep, and when the sun broke darkness, I decided to head to the police station and tell them everything. I hadn't broken any laws, so I hoped they would just help me. At least after hours of explaining everything to them, they told me there was nothing they could do. At this point, I had never felt so alone in the world and helpless. I was scared of what this guy was planning. I didn't have the foggiest idea of what I was supposed to do or expect, so I decided to wipe everything off my laptop, off my PC, and my phone. I picked up everything that I needed, stuffed it all into a bag, and decided to leave. I had a couple of friends that I knew I could rely on, so I called up my buddy Marcus, and we met, had a few beers, and I explained everything to him. He offered me a place to stay, and I hoped that would be the end of it. I was definitely wrong. A few days later, it happened again. There was a knock on the door, first thing in the morning. Marcus and I both went out to find another envelope on the floor. Same thing. Pictures of me sleeping, but these were in Marcus's house. I started freaking out again, and Marcus just said, "Okay, we need to do something, maybe set a trap or something." So we went over numerous ideas. Everything you could think of, from cameras to baiting him. And we settled on the idea of staying up during the night and locking him in a room. We filled the bed up with pillows, set up cameras, and even barred the windows in the room. We hid in the room next to the door. After a few hours had passed, we heard the lock rattling on the front door, and we knew it was game time. We left the door just slightly ajar so we could see outside. As he went past him, the moment he went into the room, we both sprung to action as quickly as possible. We closed the door and locked it from the outside using a chair and metal bar. There was only one way he was getting out. He'd have to destroy the door. We could see the silhouette of him as he paced the room quietly. It was creepy. We called the police as we kept an eye on him. At last I thought I can finish this and move on with my life. Just as the police arrived, we noticed this guy take a gun out, place it to his head. Then he held up a sign which read, "I love you," and he pulled the trigger. The police barged in, guns drawn, and told us both to get on the floor. We complied and shouted out that he's in there, pointing at the door. The police removed the makeshift lock, they entered the room, called for an ambulance, and put me and Marcus in the back of a police car. I sat in the interview room for a good couple of hours. I guess while they carried out the investigation, when the detective came in and sat down in front of me, opening a folder, placing pictures on the table. "Do you know her?" "Her?" I said, looking at the pictures, and I told him no. He looked at me and said, "This is the person who's been stalking you." He then began to tell me that they visited her room and found a shrine with photos of me all over the place, from restaurants to the gym and even shopping. He went on to tell me that she'd been the one that sent the messages, made the phone calls, etc. They also found a diary which had some kind of future plans for me and her. She wanted me to be her husband, and we've been chatting for around a year and a half. After I explained everything, the detective said I was lucky to be alive. She had actually planned to drug me and kidnap me. She had even had some makeshift lock there, so I wouldn't be able to escape. To this day, I feel lucky and I haven't been on the dark web ever since. This actually happened to a friend of mine in college over 10 years ago. He was a bit of a computer nerd and frequently visited many sites. For privacy, I'll call him Maddie. He was 25 at the time and shared custody of his toddler daughter with his ex-girlfriend. For privacy, I'll call him Maddie. He was 25 at the time and shared custody of his toddler daughter with his ex-girlfriend. He suddenly saw a flashing banner that said, "Single? Would you like to meet? Click here and find your match." He naively clicked it. The banner disappeared and was replaced with another message. "Congratulations, single lonely person. Are you a man or a woman? Click either the man or the woman symbol." He clicked the man button. It responded with, "Do you want to meet a man or a woman?" He clicked the woman symbol. Finally, it asked, "What's your name?" Wanting to remain anonymous, Adam typed, "Roger Jamison." The banner suddenly showed an animation of a person shaking their hair left and right, as if ashamed or angry. The new banner under the picture read, "Nice try, but your name is actually Adam Martin. Don't try to fool us." Adam began to get scared and tried to exit the website. To his disbelief, everything was frozen. The mouse refused to move, but he was unable to turn off the computer. Suddenly, his picture appeared on the site. The animated person holding it like a photograph. Under the picture appeared his address on another banner. "Now we have your face and address. We'll be over at your house in 20 minutes. Don't try to hide or call anyone. It's useless. She really wants to meet you." Adam screamed and threw his laptop on the floor. The screen became black. He tried his cell phone, but had found it not working. He had no landline. He then had rushed to get a weapon, choosing a baseball bat. No sooner than he had done that, his doorbell rang. It rang once, then twice. A woman's voice suddenly said, "Hello, Adam. I've come to meet you. Open the door, please." The Adam peeked out a window near the door and saw her. She was dressed in a long dark blue dress that looked like an old prom gown. She had long dark hair that looked like it needed to be brushed, with strangely thin ribs visible at the sides. Her eyes had a blank stare and were bloodshot red. Mascara and eyeliner barely covered dark circles and bags under her eyes. She looked like she hadn't slept in weeks. She was wearing dark red lipstick that was smudged over her cheek. "I know you're there," she said in a creepy way. In her left hand was a large meat cleaver, which looked like it had been used already. She began to knock on the door with the cleaver. "Come on, open the door. You said you wanted to meet. Open up." Suddenly, a neighbor's dog began to bark loudly, getting her attention. He saw her walk away with a smirking smile. He hid under his kitchen table, finally trying the cell phone again. To his relief, it was working again. But as he began to get in contact with the police, he heard the dog next door let out a loud yelp. And what sounded like someone chopping something. The dog had gone quiet, but the chopping sounds continued. Still talking to the dispatcher, Adam heard someone walk up to his door again, ring the doorbell once, then footsteps ran away. The dispatcher advised him to open the door, and the police would arrive shortly and say a code word to let him know. The 10 minutes it took for them to arrive felt like an hour. After the police gave a code word, Adam opened the door and was greeted with a gruesome sight. On the path to the door lay his neighbor's dog, a German Shepherd. It looked bad, barely recognizable. On his back was a message that said, "Next time, I'll meet you." But it spelled meat as in M-E-A-T. Unfortunately, the woman was never found, and the website couldn't be located. Adam ended up giving his neighbor a new dog. Then he moved to another place. Although he did eventually find a girlfriend. The guilt and fear he'd felt that night weighed heavily on his mind. He told me he'd luckily been smart enough to not open the door for the woman in the prom dress. I was glad he didn't. But I sometimes wonder if anyone was unfortunate enough to open that door for the crazy prom queen with a meat cleaver. I almost don't want to know. Mom, Dad, we have something we'd like to tell you, my son said, producing a bottle of champagne from his backpack. Hold on, I'll get some glasses. I watched as he scurried across the living room to the glass cabinet, flinging it open and sliding 4 champagne flutes between his fingers. I glanced at my wife. Her face had turned a light shade of pink, and her nails were frantically picking at a scab on her wrist. She was staring at Lindsay, the corners of her mouth twitching ever so lightly. Lindsay smiled back, an amicable expression on her face. Breathe, I whispered to her, and watched as her shoulders tensed up. It's going to be okay. Lindsay was our son Benjamin's latest. The two were inseparable, and he insisted on bringing her along every time we invited him over for dinner. Benjamin was almost 35 years old, and while we had certainly expected to see him settle down eventually, I suppose we had hoped our son would end up with someone more like him, like us. Honey, what's the champagne for? My wife asked, her voice quivering. Did you finally get that promotion at work? Benjamin scoffed, setting the flute down on a coffee table and shaking his head. Nah, they gave that to someone else. Fucky Alistair, of all people. Still, doesn't matter. Lindsay and I have far more exciting news. I could almost feel my wife's anxiety permeating from the room. From the corner of my eye, I could see blood trickling from the scab on her wrist, and snatched her hand right away, gripping it firmly in mine. My son and Lindsay seemed oblivious to the interaction. So, Benjamin began, pouring out the champagne. Mother, father, Lindsay and I have been together for more than a year now, and my wife's nails dug into my palm. We love each other dearly and wish to spend every waking moment with one another. Droplets of sweat began forming on my upper lip. So, we have decided to tie the knot. My blood ran cold. My wife had gone pale, and I instantly knew she felt similar. I could tell by Benjamin's expression that he had expected applause and sequels of delight. But the room was silent, and after a few moments, his brow furrowed. What? He snapped. What are you looking at me like that for? Benjamin, I began playing for time. We understand that Lindsay is important to you, but we cannot in good conscience support this arrangement. What? He sounded bewildered. Why the hell not? Lindsay's the love of my life. I looked over at Lindsay, who was perched on the edge of the couch, legs crossed. She was wearing a black strapless dress that barely covered the upper body and draped loosely over her waist and legs. Her expression remained unhinged. Ben, we think it's best if you see a professional, my wife interjected. You're such a handsome young man. There are plenty of women out there for you. There was a sharp whistling sound as Benjamin drew breath, and I felt my wife shrieking beside me. Lindsay is the perfect woman for me. Look at her, for God's sake. Show me a girl more perfect than her. She has perfect skin, perfect hair, and a body to die for. Plus, he exhaled, wiping the sweat away from his forehead. I have to marry her. We're having a baby. My wife and I stared at him, dumbfounded. My brain seemed to be at loss for how to react. Sweat was pooling under my arms, and a slow chill was creeping up my spine. I wondered if our son had finally lost it. I wondered if this was one of those times where it was acceptable to wrestle a person to the ground and call the police. Baby, my wife whispered, a hand over her mouth. But how? I knew I had to intervene. I got to my feet and placed my hands on Benjamin's shoulders. Son, Lindsay is not a real person. She is a sex doll. She cannot get pregnant or bear children. You must understand that. Now, sit down right here. Let's make a cup of tea so we can all calm down and talk about this. With that, I brushed past him and headed for the kitchen. But Benjamin's next words stopped me in my tracks. You're wrong, Dad, he said, his tone ominous. Lindsay is pregnant. He walked around the couch and propped her up by her arms. And if she isn't, how do you explain this? Benjamin pulled up Lindsay's flowy dress, exposing her lower body, clad in nothing but a pair of lace bands. I recoiled at the sight, but there was something else. A deformed bump in her stomach, far too large for her small frame. It extended towards her chest, bulging awkwardly in various places, as though it had been stuffed. My wife jumped up from the couch and shrieked, while I stood and stared at our son's exhibition, my skin prickling. What is that? It's our baby. Benjamin rolled his eyes defiantly. Are you blind or something? Benjamin, I said, shaking my head in disbelief. A sex doll cannot reproduce. It cannot give you a baby. Please, you're scaring your mother. Benjamin looked like he was about to go on another one of his angry rants, but his mother's expression seemed to ground him. He slumped down on the couch and buried his face in his hands. All right, he said sorrowfully. All right. When we found out that Lindsay couldn't get pregnant, we knew we had to look for other solutions. So, we adopted. I stared at him. You adopted? But where's the child? Benjamin shot me a mournful look. Lindsay insisted on carrying the pregnancy to term. Gifts have never been my boyfriend's strong suit. We've been together for 4 years now, and each time my birthday rolls around, I have to spend copious amounts of time hinting at items I would like to have. Last year, for example, I kept showing him pictures of a particular necklace, and even sent him an email link, twice. Yet, despite my best efforts, he never caught on. So what does he get me then, you might ask? Well, nothing. I've never received a gift from my boyfriend. Not for my birthday, not for Christmas, and not even our anniversary. My friends have asked me why I'm still with him, and truth is, I feel like breaking up over a gift, or lack thereof, would be a rather petty thing to do. I mean, is it really that important for an otherwise healthy relationship? Some might say it is. I mean, I do feel disappointed, of course, but I've grown used to it. I already know that for my next birthday, and the birthday after that, my boyfriend will pat me on the back, wish me a good day at work, and go back to watching TV. I must have been particularly shocked when he didn't get me anything during our first year together, so I asked him about it. I thought that maybe he'd forgotten, but I couldn't understand how, considering I kept reminding him about it throughout the month. Well, you know what he said? Oh, I'm sorry, Pumpkin. Aren't I enough? And that pretty much sums it up. Every year it's always been the same. I mean, it's not like I expect him to buy me expensive perfumes or a car, but a cake or a bar of chocolate would be nice. Maybe I'm overreacting. 4 years is no small feat, after all. And what's a single day in the grand scheme of things? However, I am becoming increasingly tense and irritable in the days leading up to my birthday. My boyfriend noticed this year when he discovered me crying in the bathroom. "What's wrong, Katie?" he asked, pulling me into a hug. I sobbed, not knowing how to bring the subject up again. I mean, at this stage, what was even the point? It wasn't like things were going to change. "I need a new coat," I sniffled. "There's this one I really want." He stared at me, wide-eyed, as I showed him a picture on my phone. "Well, why are you crying? Go out and get it." See, this is exactly the issue. My boyfriend doesn't believe in gifts. "I can't, Michael," I sobbed. "Why not?" He looked astounded. "Don't you have money?" How could you be so clueless? Overcome with a sudden pang of anger, I blurted out something I immediately regretted. "Either you get me a birthday gift this year," I took a deep breath, "or we're over." He looked shell-shocked. To be fair, I was too. "I'm sorry," I began, but he scrambled to his feet and left the room. For the next couple of days, we barely spoke to one another. He stayed in the living room, and I mostly kept to myself in the bedroom. I tried apologizing several times, but he only grumbled under his breath. Something about me only wanting him for his money. We both knew that wasn't true, though. He wasn't even working at the time, so I was the one giving him an allowance. I had to go to work on my birthday. Most people would shudder at the thought, but I didn't mind. See, it was the one place I knew I'd be appreciated and acknowledged with at least a small gift. My colleagues went all out this year, getting me a large cake and a gift card from my favorite boutique. I would have been ecstatic if it hadn't been for the nagging thought of returning home to nothing. However, when I let myself into the front door that evening, I was immediately left with a vase of roses, surrounded by glowing candles. A note sat on top of the flower bouquet. "You've discovered your first clue. You decided what to do. Take the plunge. The price was steep. Check the place on which you sleep." I stared at it, dumbfounded. He actually bought me a gift? I dashed to the bedroom, looking around wildly for the next piece of paper. I found it sitting on top of my pillow. "You have found the second hint. Have you read the finer print? You will get there. Keep the faith. Check the place in which you bathe." What? The finer print? I giggled at the questionable writing. Still, this was a great improvement from the previous years. I didn't have to search long when I entered the bathroom. The note was in plain sight, stuck to the surface of the mirror. "You have found the final clue. Please leave us a good review. We've been paid a fine deposit. Go ahead, check your closet." Wait, us? Had he hired a company to do this? I yanked the closet doors open. Inside hung the most beautiful rose-colored coat I'd ever seen. I grabbed it, pulling it off its hanger in excitement and throwing it on. It was perfect. The shade complemented my complexion, and the suede material felt soft on my skin. "Michael," I called out, expecting him to emerge from the kitchen. I found it. But aside from the soft crackle of the candles, the apartment was silent. I picked up my phone from the floor where I'd left it and turned it on. One new notification. I jabbed at the screen. There was a message from Michael. Your order number 63820 has been completed. The details are below for reference. 8 times red roses, classic, 30 USD. 6 scented candles, vanilla, 22. 3 custom scavenger hunt clues, birthday, 50 USD. 1 pink suede coat. Michael, 0 USD. Please check coat pocket for complimentary gift. I gaped at it. My lovely new coat had been free. And what was this about a complimentary gift? A new wave of excitement washed over me. Was there something else? Had he bought me the watch I'd asked for my last birthday? I snuck my hand into the left pocket of my coat. There was something inside. It was circular and squishy. At once, I retracted my hand and snapped the overhead lights on to get a better look. Whatever it was, it hadn't left any residue on my fingers. I swallowed and pried the pocket open at the sides to try to see inside. I wish I hadn't. At first, I didn't even understand what it was. It was so red and bloody, I couldn't even see it properly. I took the coat off and dumped it onto the floor, shaking the paint as I left. The contents rolled out, nestling into a crease in the suede. I nearly retched at the sight. There was no mistaking it. They were eyeballs. I screamed, then I retched. Then, my phone pinged. I grabbed at, my heart pounding out of my chest. Another text from Michael. Thank you for shopping with us. What? What was he playing at? With shaking hands, I pressed the call button and held my phone up to my ear, ready to give my boyfriend a piece of my mind. Hello? A young woman's voice chimed on the other end. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. Where's Michael? I blurted out. Was he cheating on me on my birthday? There was silence on the other end. Could you let me know your order number? The woman's tone was sickly sweet. It took me a moment to understand what she wanted. I had no idea whether the whole ordeal was some elaborate prank I wasn't in on, but I certainly wasn't going to stoop down to their level. Pass the phone to Michael right now, I growled. Ma'am, I'm afraid I can't do that. Please let me know your order number and I'll see how I can help. There was no way around it. 63820, I read aloud. I heard the clacking of her keyboard. Right, she said after a pause. I can confirm that your new coat is indeed 100% Michael. Is there anything else I can help you with? What? What are you talking about? Where's Michael? She cleared her throat. Now, Michael came into our shop this morning looking for a very particular coat. He showed us a picture, and we told him we didn't carry it, and that it had to be custom made. When he gave him the price estimate, he told us he'd get the material himself. That's all I can tell you. As she spoke, my heart traveled from my chest to my throat. Where did he get the material? She sighed. I'm not at liberty to say, but everything was done at his request. Is there anything else I can help you with, ma'am? I ended the call and dropped my phone onto my new coat, staring at the mess on the floor. My eyes were brimming with tears. I couldn't understand what happened. Was I supposed to call the police? My phone pinged. I picked it up and stared at the screen. It was from Michael. He sent a video.